In all my years on council, I think I remember one emergency meeting. I think I've been going to one emergency meeting. And because basically the only reason it has to be urgent, and you can't manage notice, which on Friday you can't manage.
Well, this is all we can do, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, I see that you guys found the ring.
Yeah, they're not impressed with it, so I think they're gonna try to get
Try to redo that.
a new one. But yeah, they were taking out for you.
Okay. Well, last time we didn't have one, I was really impressed that somebody else has it. I didn't even,
Yeah, I didn't.
you know, so.
And then they were asking it, there's a little sign in the middle that says City of Cleveland. Someone said last night you're supposed to. I don't remember. It doesn't seem like the military thing, which is usually what we do. So that,
Okay.
but somewhere you need a name on there somewhere, so you can claim your own.
Right.
Because you don't leave it, you take it back.
Yes, the borough had theirs and Wasilla had theirs and I'm pretty sure they got theirs.
Yeah, but it could be on the back or something obvious like that. But I don't know, I'll let the clerk's officer lead.
Got it.
I know I was.
What is it?
We're messaging Josh asking if I can reserve the signature. So I can get it out of here.
Which one?
The thank you letter from the borough, that one.
No, it's fine. No. Okay. Okay, so you're doing the roll call now?
Do I get it?
As you see. So you ready to do roll call?
Yeah, let me just get this over here. Just the right person.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We will call this emergency city council meeting, April 25th, 2023 at 5:30 to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Anzalati?
Here.
Councilmember Ojala? Councilmember Best?
Here.
Councilmember Tudor?
Here.
Mayor Carrington?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Moline?
Here.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Here.
Okay, no Ojala. The only one. I don't have it.
Okay.
So I think we're good for the moment.
All right. All right, next, if everyone can rise, and Chief, could I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Next is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
All right,
Second?
it's been moved and seconded. And Madam Clerk, you could call the roll.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Anzalati?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay. All right, next is the audience participation. And let the record show that Mr. Ojala has joined us. So we will open audience participation. Anyone wishing to come forward, here comes the chief. He was getting up just as I was opening, so. You know. Nobody running forward other than the chief, and he's running out the door. Okay, we will close audience participation. Next, we have an action memoranda, the whole purpose of this emergency meeting. Action memorandum number 23-027, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into a utility agreement with the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for the city of Palmer's city share of the utility relocation of the city of Palmer water and sewer pipes as part of the Glen Highway, Parks Highway to Inner Springer Loop Phase 2 construction project. Quite the name. So I guess we need a motion to get this, so we can start discussing this.
So moved.
Okay, so
Second.
moved and seconded. If you want to go ahead, oh no, we're not, we're gonna have discussion now. Or staff report. So. Mr. Manager, do you want to start with this, or should I give a brief overview, or?
If you'd like to give the overview, that would be fine.
Okay. So if I remember right, our Public Works Director late Thursday got an email from DOT saying, look, this has to happen before we can open the bids on Thursday next week. So we had a meeting or two on Friday and basically concluded, okay, it has to happen. That means it's an emergency meeting because we can't get notice in there. So this is coming about because we had a representative for the city of Palmer in 2005 basically signed an agreement with DOT that if we ever needed to move things when they put in the utilities through under the highway, that we would bear 50% of the cost. So this is basically to clarify that, or to, I'm not sure what the right word is for that, but what's that? Authorize, so that we need to get the manager to authorize this. Well, we need to authorize the manager to do this. Now, part two of this will be, once the bids are open, we start looking at the project, the cost will come in. I mean, there's like an estimate of $400,000, but we don't know the actuals. So once we do, it'll come back to us. We'll be looking at funding, how are we going to get the funds, et cetera. But that would actually be a resolution that would come back to us to spend that money, et cetera. Did I summarize okay, Mr. Manager?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So, does anyone have any questions? Mr. Alcantara, Councilman Alcantara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it. I don't know if the question for City Manager Jude, but when I read this earlier, there seemed to be a dollar amount of $412,487 in the context of the action memorandum 23027. I'm looking at it now, sort of a, hey, well, the cost is unknown and not budgeted. Was it just a figment of my imagination, or did we have something 24 hours ago that had a dollar figure attached to it?
So this is where I say it'd be best to procrastinate reviewing any documents. Because yes, you saw correctly what we first sent out. So case in point, the person who knows everything was not available that day. So we gave it our best attempt on Friday. So one of the things that we have is, no, this was not budgeted. We did not anticipate this, and I think to a person, we don't believe we even knew this agreement existed. Understand that's a problem, and like we have just gathered all our agreements that we have and have the attorney, we will be going through and tracking those. Because this is almost 18 years old, 18. So when the person who knows the most came in, said, number one, you cannot take money from this fund when it's a utility fund, so the money has to come over there. The second thing is, we don't know exactly where we are on the utility fund until the audit comes through, or at least we had a discussion with the auditors. That should have already happened, but we're working on that. And the third thing is, DOT is going out to bid, which is 50% of the cost of lowering the utility lines another 10 to 12 feet we won't know what that bid is till it comes in. So tonight we got approved at 412 and it came in at 500,000, then we would have an issue. I do not like to have special meetings. I don't like to bring this to you at the last minute. But given the project and how this was handled, I think this is our way out. Jude can give you the details on why we need to do it. This utilities is very important because this is what feeds the medical center and the college. And occasionally, when other agencies do work, we do get ourselves caught and we didn't know this or somebody else agreed to it. Don't get it often, but it did happen this time.
And let me add in there that come Monday, when I was kind of looking at the documents and go, oh wait, they're wrong. We need to fix the documents, basically flush the first version and get the ones that are accurate, to represent what it is we're trying to do. So I kind of insisted we needed to change the documents. Because I didn't want, as a council member, I didn't want you coming forward and go, oh yeah, this is budgeted. And then it's like, wait, it's not? That's why I kind of insisted we needed to change the documents. And it's a lot of paper there, thanks, Jude. But it's historical, and so to make sure that we have the context.
So one other thing to add, and the city of Palmer is taking full responsibility for that. But in case we knew this agreement was there, DOT came, I think, a month and a half ago and presented. They did not know when they're going to be letting these contracts. So they told us on Thursday, hey, we're doing this in a week. They did not know that because they just got permission from the feds to move forward, and they ran to this, which is great, but it put us in a pickle. Even if we did know it, and it's no excuse not knowing, but even if we did, we'd still be in the same spot because we would not know how quickly they were going to move on this bid.
Councilman Alcantara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I look at this document, which is probably not incredible, reimbursable cost. So if the total is 723 and we're paying 412, I mean, if we pass this tonight, are we giving some sort of blank check? Or are we gonna hope that it comes in under 412 and we'll all be happy? So I guess that's for Jude, maybe.
I don't know, is that on?
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Are you hearing anything? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, council members, Jude Billafer, your Public Works Director. Yes, while on paper those numbers do not look correct, there is also $43,000 worth of betterments that are part of that as well that the city has asked for. Those are negotiable. So for example, once the bids are open Thursday morning and the low bidder presents to us the portion of which are our betterments, let's just say for the sake of discussion, they're gold-plated sewer lines. Well, we don't want gold-plated sewer lines. So we have the ability to nix that betterment portion of the 43,000. So that would change that number immediately by that much. There are also some costs in there that are not part of technically the 50% relocation piece. And there's some admin fees you see in there, and forgive me, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but there's 3 or 4 lines that are subtracted off of that as well. And this is, as you noticed in there, it is an estimate. And so much so that DOT in the writing of this utility agreement is giving us, the city, 60 days from the time we receive a bill. So this could be months from now. It could be a year from now. It could be even longer than that, because they will do their analysis, their reviews, calculations on exactly what took place
and if it was in compliance with the bid documents and everything else before they send the city a bill, of which we then have 60 days to pay the bill or negotiate something other. So that's how those costs look a little bit confusing. Does that make sense?
Councilman Alcantara.
I guess I would just say, Mr. Belfer, that my only fear in the estimate world is just that, you know, if we're passing this tonight and it comes back at 500,000 instead of 412, hey, that's cost of doing business in 2023, so to speak. But if a year from now we get a bill of 2.1 million and we've you authorized this thing back on April 25th, 2023, so pay us the 2.1 million. That's going to be a little tough to swallow. So I don't know if I'm worrying, if I'm whistling by the graveyard here, or if I actually have a legitimate worry. So
If there is any sort of significant increase like that, regardless, there will be a DOT spokesman and an accountant to brief the city council on those estimates and numbers.
sounds good.
Councilman Tudor. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to kind of reiterate, sounds like we found out about this from the DOT. Is that correct? They emailed us and let us know that we signed this agreement because it was kind of lost in time, essentially.
We did. We received their newest form, and when it showed us the estimate of 50%, so part of this delay, I will admit up front, is my fault. Because I pushed back on DOT and said, I am not familiar with this sort of percentage. Please show me the document. Which, to their credit, they did produce, but it took quite a bit of time. Because as I mentioned, 50% cost share is not what I have heard of before. So regardless, we got this late. This is a requirement for us, the city, to have this utility agreement, the updated one, in place before they open their bids, which is Thursday, for this Glen Highway project.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for doing that. I mean, that sounds like prudence to ask for evidence for that. That's a good thing to ask for. I guess my only question is just for the future, do we have a process in place to ensure that we don't get sidelined by this in the future?
We do now, and that is any projects dealing with an agency outside of the city. That is one of our first questions we ask now at the initial review stage of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Moline.
I actually think that you answered most of the questions through what Councilman Tudor had asked, but I guess my thought process was that, to Mr. Alcantara's point, is that was there any type of flex within this agreement that allows us to cap at, like, say 10 or 15% beyond, whatever is reasonable for fair market value type, negotiations?
Councilmember Moline, I am not aware of that. I did not see anything that would indicate that. I would also ask Attorney Heath if she saw anything. I didn't see anything at all like that.
I would agree with that. There wasn't any outs. There was an agreement of 50-50 split, and then the new draft that they proposed, which I believe was sent to you, included the agreement that was highlighted in 2005. So we did have a city official sign that and commit to that on behalf of the city in 2005.
Is there any more questions from the council? Are we ready to, Councilman Best?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, how I understand this is really a memorandum of understanding kind of going forward. That's why we're not really getting any hard dollars on stuff. It's just the process is going forward. And then eventually at some point, then we'll get a hard number dollar that then the body gets to give thumbs up or down on. At that point, it's just a going forward.
And I would kind of expect at our next council meeting on May 9th that we will probably hear something from the manager on how the bids came in and what price ranges we're looking at. And as well as we can start discussion about how healthy is our utility funds, et cetera. So, okay. Are we ready to vote then? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Ojala,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Councilmember Anzalati,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline,
Yes.
unanimous.
All right. And that comes to the end of our agenda. We are adjourned. We have a meeting at 6 o'clock.
Correct.
Don't go far, Josh.
I'll try not to.
People have a chance to sit down.
We're on, she's going.
Shit, we're recording? Okay. All right. We will call this meeting of the regular city council of Palmer to order for April 25th, 2023 at 6 o'clock. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Anzalati? Here. Councilmember Ojala?
Here.
Councilmember Best?
Here.
Councilmember Tudor?
Here.
Mayor Carrington?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Moline?
Here.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Here.
All here?
All right. If you could all rise with me, and I'll ask Ben Rowell if he could lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is approval of the agenda. And in the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from our April 11th, 2023 regular meeting. What's the wishes of the council?
Mr.
Then-
Mayor,
Yes.
move to approve.
Second.
Sorry, Mr. Best, you were too quiet. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any changes to the agenda council wants to make at this point? No? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Ojala?
Yes.
Councilmember Anzalati?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Right. Next, we have communications and appearances. I believe we have someone with Arctic Winter Games, or a few someones from Arctic Winter Games. So is that Amy Spargo gonna present to us?
Permission to approach. Sure.
Things to be,
I don't have any such meeting for you.
so yeah,
Okay.
the clerk handles things, so we know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Carrington, Manager Musi, members of the City Council. My name's Amy Spargo, and I am a volunteer chair of the Mat-Su 2024 Arctic Winter Games. And I'm a lifelong resident of the Mat-Su Borough and recently retired from the school district. And with this one big, beautiful life that we're given, I'm using my time to help bring a really wonderful thing to the valley. So we're here to talk about the Arctic Winter Games and the role that Palmer, the city of Palmer, is going to play in those games. And then we have a request for you as well. So Shelley, yes, I'll just say next, and we'll just move through our presentation. So next. So in January, our host society traveled to Wood Buffalo, Alberta. And if this is Montana and this is Calgary and this is Edmonton, Wood Buffalo would be way up there. So it was 40 below. And we got to experience the Arctic Winter Games truly in the Arctic. And it was a life-changing experience for all of us. We have been planning and prepping, but we didn't get the spirit of the games until we got to be there in person and see the friendships and see what happened when you bring all these people together in this common spirit of resource sharing and cooperation and friendship. And so this is a video of the footage from when we were there, and I want to start our presentation by just sharing that with you. Does it click on it?
Play down there.
I don't know, it's just next. I mean, we don't have any play.
No.
I don't have a video. I just have a slideshow.
It's got a hyperlink in it. Are you attached to the internet?
No,
Oh,
no, we just have the slideshow. That's all we have for right now.
okay. You're gonna miss out on a really great thing, so maybe we'll figure that out for the end or something. So, in 2021, the Mat-Su Borough submitted a bid to host the Arctic Winter Games, and they were awarded that spring. And in that summer, a nonprofit organization was formed in order to do the planning and the hosting for that. And so the Arctic Winter Games are coming. We're in 11 months away, and we represent the group that has formed to do the fundraising and receive the state dollars and bring those games to you. So there's another group called Team Alaska that is the people who bring the participants. We have nothing to do with the participants. We just host the participants. So I just always have to clarify that when we get started. Next. All right, so I brought with me our general manager, Karen Lane, and she is new to us from Fairbanks, and she actually was the general manager for the 2014 Arctic Winter Games, the last time the games were held in Alaska, and so that was a decade ago. And Ben Rowell is our venues manager, and he's been working with people from the city of Palmer to work out the details of some of the venues that we're going to have. Next. So the first thing we did was figured out what did we want the games to be. We've set a schedule. Our schedule is not just filled with sports, but it's filled with cultural events. Next. There are 20 sports going to be played. Everything that you can think of that you do competitively on ice: hockey, figure skating, speed skating, curling. There's outdoor sports: alpine skiing, biathlon, snowshoe and cross country, snowboarding, and Arctic sports. And then there's, if you think of Native Youth Olympics, there's a whole lot of Dene sports like that. And then there's indoor sports that are common to the north as well: basketball, volleyball, futsal, which we'll talk about a little later. So something for everyone. We'll be using just about every gym, every ice, every field that we have in the valley when this happens. Next. In addition to sports, there'll be a parallel cultural program. Each group that comes from around the circumpolar north brings a team with them of not just athletes, but cultural performers. And there will be pop-up performances all throughout the valley. There will be art activations where you can interact with these cultural artists, and then there will be eventually they'll work together and produce a cultural gala. You can see some of the other things we're going to do. So it's the only games of its sort in the world where it's equal parts sport and culture. Next. While the participants are here, then there will be 2,000 of them. So there's a lot of youth coming for 1 week, and they will have coaches, they will have staff that come with them. Many of them will have their parents who come with them. And so one of the secondary sport or events of the whole games is this pin trading. And we've been talking to the mayors. The mayors, when we were in Wood Buffalo, all had their own pins. And so that was really fun to see what each municipality, certain people had pins, but their pin trading is going to be rampant. And we're hoping to base that out of the Palmer Depot. We'll also just do all kinds of things to facilitate youth interaction so that the kids get to be friends. Next. So in order to make this happen, we have a small staff, and the rest of the work is all done through community-minded people like yourselves, volunteers who are going to help put these on. So we're recruiting, and we hope to have in total 2,000 volunteers. When we were in Wood Buffalo, one of the elements of being a volunteer for the Arctic Winter Games is that everyone gets a uniform. A uniform is a long sleeve shirt and a winter coat, and they're all color coded based on what your role is as a volunteer. And so when you're out and about in the community, you can see all these people wearing all these coats all the time, and you can see that what a big team you all are. And it really was a fun experience in Wood Buffalo to see how everyone, how many people in the grocery stores and everywhere we went had their volunteer coats on because they were a part of the effort. Next. One of the things that we hope to do is add a little flair. We hope to really make this week not just special for the participants, but for the community as well. So, and you'll see that all these things are happening in Palmer. We are going to be having a 3-day winter carnival on the Palmer State Fairgrounds, complete with Golden Wheel amusement and fireworks, and reindeer petting zoos and dog sled rides. There'll be a maker's market there for Alaskan artists to share what the work they've done. There'll be booths for kids and employment development, and there'll be an alumni lounge. Have any of you on the city council participated in the Arctic Winter Games? Almost everywhere we go, we find people who have participated. We really believe that there is a path to leadership through the Arctic Winter Games. I know on the assembly there are people who participated. But we're going to do a big project to try to capture our local alumni who've been in the Arctic Winter Games and show how this is a gift of investing in people and that they go on and continue to do great things in their community. Next. It's hard to imagine, but of these 2,000 people, only 235 to 300 of them will be U.S. citizens. The rest are all international travelers. And so in order to keep that kind of in the front of our minds, we've made these passports, and that's what was shared with you. And there's activities you can do. If you have a young person in your life, I encourage you to give them the passport. And if they finish all the activities, they can bring them by our clubhouse on 902 East Palmer-Wasilla Highway, right across from Alaska Federal USA. And we have prizes for kids who finish their passport activities. Next. So we have 40 venues next, and a lot of those are in Palmer. So we're going to start, we're going to have a transportation route. So all of the games will be connected by tour buses, and the routes will bring people that are staying in the villages, which are 5 different schools, and 2 of the schools are in Wasilla Middle and Wasilla High, but the other schools where the participants are staying are Colony Middle, Colony High, and Palmer High. And but all the venues are connected via loops, and the participants can ride the loops, but also spectators can ride the transportation as well. And there'll be a downtown bus stop in Palmer. We hope to have pin trading in the alumni lounge at the Palmer Depot. Palmer High is going to host futsal. Futsal is indoor soccer, but it's not like indoor soccer like you played in PE. If you think about it, it's a big sport in Canada. It's a little like hockey and soccer if they had a baby. So in futsal, it's constant play, and they just roll over the boards and come in. It's quite physical, and it's a very fun game to watch. And there's 235 participants in futsal, so there's going to be a lot of families that come, and they're going to be watching that. I encourage you to get up to Palmer High and see that. So you can see on that list the Palmer Middle, the MTA Event Center, the warehouse. The warehouse is where our volunteer center is going to be. That also is in Palmer. It's over on Colony Way, the Red Barn. We're leasing that facility right now. Much of our cultural events are at the Glen Massey. We talked about the fairgrounds, the Borough Gym. We're going to have activities there for the participants to do. And then out at GPRA, there's cross-country skiing, ski talk, and many community pop-up performances around Palmer. So what we're requesting from the City of Palmer is a facility use waiver for the MTA Center and the Palmer Depot. And we sent a letter to that effect, but we didn't want you to think that that was the only thing that was happening in Palmer, that much of what is happening in the Arctic Winter Games, we're bringing all these people here. Next. So we've built our brand. You've probably seen us on social media. We're continually selling our gear and our merchandise. If you haven't stopped by, we encourage you to do that. Next. And often in multi-sport games, you've seen them in the Olympics, there's a mascot. Well, we talked to our local tribes, and there wasn't a real, we were trying to get ideas on what might be an appropriate mascot, and it was suggested to us that rather than having a mascot, we think about an animal ambassador. And we loved the idea. The story behind the chickadee is that Ahtna legend is that when you see a chickadee on the trail, it means a friend is thinking about you. And so we have chickadees everywhere. We have chickadees pins and chickadee stickers, and of course chickadees are everywhere in the valley. And we have been using that as as a way to communicate to our guests that are coming and to our volunteers that we are a friend and we are thinking of them. Next. So we have a mission and a bird, and now we needed a song. So believe it or not, Portugal the Man has agreed to write our theme song for us, and it's going to be released in June. An original song that they will perform. We'll have rights to play the song in its entirety. They're doing a version without words so that we can use it for our metal performances. We'll have a video of them performing it, an original that we can use in our opening and closing ceremonies and in advertisements. So we're super excited about this. And if you're not following us on Instagram, that's probably where it's going to be first, the big news sent out there. So we tell everyone, like us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram. Next. So we're hoping that Palmer, and there's been some conversation, will help us bring our brand to Palmer. And there's been a conversation about putting banners on your light posts, and we love that idea. And we're hoping, we've tried to get the state to get along with us along the Palmer-Wasilla. We haven't had success in that, so we're thrilled that the cities might be able to do something a little more expeditiously than we have been through the state. So there's another close-up on the next slide of what those might look like. And this is all part of our branding that we would help design if this ends up being the case. Next. So in 1 year, we are bringing the games to you, and I wanted to also put in a plug for volunteers. Next. The volunteer efforts can be a great team building activity, and so we have a way to do corporate volunteers, but also the City of Palmer could be a volunteer. The Palmer City Council could be a team that would come out together and volunteer and sign up together, get your coats and get your shirts and be a part of the whole effort. So we encourage groups of people to show up, not just because it's good for the Arctic Winter Games, but it's good for your group as well to be able to serve in the community together. Next. We already have 473 people who are currently working and doing great work, either serving as volunteers in the planning area or staffing events or going to doing public awareness activations. So we know that your time is your most valuable resource, and above all, that's what we're hoping we can do, is engage people in this effort. Next. We also have many opportunities for sponsorship on our website. There's a long awg2024.org. There's a lot of details about what the levels of sponsorship are, but we are recognizing our sponsors. If we get this facility use waiver, then the City of Palmer will be considered a sponsor. We'll be listed in all of our materials, on all of our presentations, and in our publications. Next. In particular, there's been conversation about what level, and we just wanted you to know that if you do come in at the 50,000 level, which would be the facility use waiver and the banners on the light posts, then you'd be listed in all of our publications. We do a big press release. There's a sponsor reception that the city would be invited to. There's opening and closing ceremony tickets. So Arctic Winter Games is like a little mini Winter Olympics. It starts with a Parade of the Nations, and that's going to be at the Menard Center. And then we could have mayors be medal presenters. You could name one of the venues that are, it could be that's not named already after the City of Palmer. So there's lots of advantages to being a sponsor. And you get a cool cup, you get flags. That's the other thing, is we're hoping that everyone in Palmer, all these businesses, we have flags as one of our gifts, and that's at the lowest level, at $2,024. You're a friend of the game and you get a flag, and so spread the word. We would love to see flags, Arctic Winter Games flags flying all over Palmer. Next, I think we're done. So come see us. We love being close to downtown Palmer. We're right up the road from here. The coffee pot's always on, and shop for some merch if you have birthdays or anything else coming up. Mother's Day, I'm sure that there are people, we have great LL Bean anoraks that you would love, that the women in your life would love. Come see us. Next, I think that's it. So, Rising Strong, our theme is about the sun coming back in the spring. We are rising strong, and boy, it's been a long, hard spring in this year. So, it just reminds us that we all need these positive things to look forward to, and we are grateful for the City of Palmer. We're grateful for your support, and we look forward to partnering with you. So, that's it. I could answer any questions if you have any. You know what would be great is, did you say that are you on if you went to YouTube, AWG 2024, we could play your little 1-minute video.
We have other presentations as well, so
Okay.
we'll have to catch up on that. And I'm sure our manager will kind of come back with us with some of the details of the request. I will say that my mother-in-law helped with the Fairbanks
Oh, good.
and had a coat, and she also loves chickadees, so I'm so sure she would be quite happy
boy.
about that. But thank you very much.
Mayor,
Oh,
real quick,
Councilman Alcantara.
great presentation, Amy, thank you. Can you tell me how much did you receive from the state of Alaska? Did they do something in last capital budget? Because a little worried about this year's capital budget, so you
Yeah.
guys
We got
received your
2
funding
million
already.
from them in the first time around. Yeah, our total budget is 7.4 million. So that was about 30% of what we need, and so we've been fundraising since.
Thank
We
you,
have made another request.
thank you,
Okay,
thank you, Mr.
all right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. The flags, so what's the investment looking like roughly for the flags?
At what level of sponsorship?
Right.
2024.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. And that's for just 1 or 2, right? I'm talking about the light poles.
Oh, the light
Yeah, I'm
poles.
talking about the light pole.
I don't think we have the exact quote
Okay.
on that.
That's okay, if maybe we
Yeah.
could get that.
Yes,
Okay.
we know an organization that puts real nice pictures of graduates on, so I'll be contacting them to help produce and then presenting all this. So just so you know, there's a request. We wanted Amy and her team to present tonight, but at the first meeting in May, it will be come back to you for consideration.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Amy. Next, we have Mr. Jude Billifer, Public Works Director. Troublemaker extraordinaire.
It's a great way to start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Carrington, Manager Moosey, council members. I'm Jude Billifer, your Public Works Director. I wanted to touch base a little bit on upcoming road projects and other projects around town. The council generously gave the Public Works Department $500,000 to do additional projects around town. The department had never been forward funded before. So as part of the update memo that I submitted for you, I'll just give a quick recap on that. The Evergreen Pathway Project opened its bid on the 20th. The bid came in a little higher than we were expecting. We did have 3 bidders. The low bid though was $425,002. The high bid, just to give you an idea, was $590,000. So the good thing is, you gave us $500,000. A minimum of $425,000 is going to this project. Not a minimum, but that's what the bid is for. That will start here. I will see you again on the 9th of May to award that contract. The Fireweed Ave Railroad Crossing Rehabilitation Project. As most of you are aware, the railroad track crossing at Fireweed Ave and at Evergreen Ave are in need of significant repairs. Not only are they in such disrepair that they damage vehicles, but they are starting to injure people as well. What I mean by that is there have been bicycle accidents, there have been walker accidents, there have been kids on trikes that have been hurt crossing at those 2 locations. That is an ongoing project. There is not funding for it right now. We have spent, as you see on the memo, just shy of $14,000 on design and making sure we know exactly where utilities are, right of way, that sort of action so far. Crack sealing, road striping, curb painting, that's on the minds of a lot of folks. We do have a limited budget, but as you see in that memo, that is something I will also be bringing to you on the 9th of May to extend for the third option, which is allowable under a current contract that we have, to do road striping, crack sealing, pothole filling. This includes not only city streets, city curbs, but also taxiways and aprons at the airport. So there is a separate pot of airport funding that takes care of that. And that total cost is $153,961. We would love to be able to do the entire city road striping and curb painting and crosswalks, that sort of thing. We just do not have the funds to do that. So that's why you see this is an incremental approach. Our city street striping, just to give you an idea, the total square or linear footage for this project this year totals just under 18 miles of lane striping. We have almost 70 miles of lane striping that's needed across the city, just to give you a frame of reference of how much we can do with what is in our current budget. And then finally, you see there Reservoir 4. This is Palmer's Reservoir for their water system located out by the Mat-Su College. This has been a project we have been actively working with FEMA. This is a result of the January 2022 windstorm. That project now, once funding was identified, is out for bid. Those bids will open on the 27th of April. So 2 days from now. You see there, the engineer estimate is between $780,000 and $950,000. Again, I'd love to tell you it'd be on the low end, but I don't know that. We will know that on the 27th when we open the bids. Some of you may have noticed as well, 3:30 this morning, we started road sweeping. And this is a project that was delayed a little bit, and that was due to the temperatures. So for those folks who are not familiar with the process, as we sweep the roads, we ensure that we water the area thoroughly prior to sweeping. If we did not, I probably wouldn't be working here very long because the dust cloud generated by sweepers is enormous. Some folks may have noticed or may even receive complaints. There were some entities downtown that were cleaning their parking lots, but in the middle of the day with not much wind and there were some dust clouds. We, again, are fortunate we use water. We have access to the water to do that, and that's part of our contract. So anyways, as I mentioned, 3:30 this morning, we started, and that will continue on. Our focus for tomorrow and Wednesday is the right downtown, Evergreen, South Alaska, South Colony Way. That's where the sweepers will be. We will not have them out when it is traffic times. The sweepers will be off the street or into an area of significantly lower traffic so that we do not interfere with people coming and going to work or to school, anything like that. That is all I have for you at this time, pending your questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Billiford? No? I guess you're very thorough. Thank you very much. Oh, you thought of something.
Yeah, I did.
Sorry, Councilman Best.
On your citywide crack sealing, the infrared pothole patch, did we actually pick up that equipment or are we renting that?
We do contract that out.
Okay. And is that something that we're thinking about in our equipment purchasing later on in another year or two to purchase? And do you recall how much those are?
I do not. Councilman Best, thank you for the question. We have looked it up. I do not recall the estimate off the top of my head. And if you recall, one of the other estimated costs for a new piece of equipment was a new steam truck. But the estimate that came in is very high. So we're contemplating on how to approach that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next we have A couple of proclamations. What was listed first? The proclamation of the day of prayer?
Yes.
Okay. Someone sent me the proclamation, which I decided to modify. But, so a proclamation recognizing May 4th, 2023 as a day of prayer. Whereas in 1981, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed May 4th to be a national day of prayer, and whereas our nation's motto, "In God We Trust," was not chosen lightly, it reflects a basic recognition that there's a divine authority in the universe to which this nation owes homage. And whereas throughout our history, Americans have put their faith in God, and no one can doubt that we have been blessed for it, it was the hard work of our people, the freedom that they enjoyed, and their faith in God that built this country and made it the envy of the world. In all of our great cities and towns, evidence of faith of our people is found. Houses of worship are among the oldest structures. And whereas, while never willing to bow to a tyrant, our forefathers were always willing to get on their knees before God. When catastrophe threatened, they turned to God for deliverance. When the harvest was bountiful, the first thought was thanksgiving to God. And whereas today prayer can be as powerful a force in our nation as it has ever been, we as a nation should never forget this source of strength. And while recognizing that the freedom to choose a godly path is the essence of liberty, as a nation we cannot but hope that more of our citizens would, through prayer, come into a closer relationship with their Maker. Now, therefore, I, Steve Carrington, Mayor of the City of Palmer, Alaska, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 4th, 2023, as a day of prayer. On that day, I ask for all who believe to join with me in giving thanks to Almighty God for the blessings He has bestowed on this land and the protection He affords us as people. Let us as a city and a nation join together before God, fully aware of the trials that lie ahead and the need, yes, the necessity for divine guidance. With unshakable faith in God and the liberty which is heritage, we as a free nation will surely survive and prosper. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand on the 25th of April. And I will I'll be sharing that with some churches, I think, as well. Next. And I don't know, do we have anyone from Pet Partners here? I didn't think I saw anyone come in. Okay. Another proclamation. Somehow our staff has gotten very good at finding proclamations. A proclamation recognizing April 30th, 2023 as National Therapy Animal Day. And I'll say I rewrote this one a little bit too. I have a couple of friends, Jack and Joe. Jack is afraid of horses. He hates them. And then the other one, Joe, became very attached to horses, and it was very therapeutic for him to ride horses and learn about them. So I was thinking about them whereas ancient Greeks practiced animal therapy and used horses to lift people's spirits, and physicians in Belgium used horses to help patients with physical and mental health conditions. And whereas the American Red Cross used animals on a farm where war veterans suffering from injury or illness take care of animals to help with their recovery. And whereas the exceptional therapy animals, whether dogs, cats, horses, or others, who partner with their human companions, bring comfort and healing to those in need, and interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students facing literary challenges, and those approaching the end of life. And whereas therapy animal teams in the City of Palmer play an essential role in improving human health and well-being throughout the human-animal bond. And whereas therapy animals promote the health and wellness benefits of animal-assisted therapy, activities, and education, and Pet Partners has designated April 30th, 2023 as National Therapy Animal Day. Now, therefore, I, Steve Carrington, Mayor of the City of Palmer, do proclaim April 30th, 2023 as National Therapy Animal Day. All right. And next time I will share with other council people to do proclamations.
We got some more coming, Mayor.
Yeah, I noticed that. All right, next we have the city manager's report.
Yes, good evening. Tonight, under public hearings, we have Resolution 23013 regarding the designation of the MPO. I am asking you this evening not to take action on that, but do the public hearing and then have it open for questions. I'd also ask you to do exactly the same thing for the first meeting of May, and then if you choose to, take action on the second meeting in May. This is a new process for us, and there's many questions. There's some heartburn over this, and we just want to take the time for yourself and public to fully understand what the heck we're getting ourselves into. Did I say? Yeah, I said that. Okay. Also, this morning, the chamber has these meetings at different businesses at 8 a.m. About once a month. And today it was at the Highland Hotel, which is just down here. Pretty incredible. I think it's probably not the right word, but in years past, it kind of turned into a flop house, had some issues, but a young Palmer couple have purchased that and completely redid it. And it is pretty doggone incredible. It's a nice, sweet, cute, well done, really boutique hotel and suites there. So they will have something up, I think, on Facebook. If you have a chance to see it, it's surprisingly great. Also, too, if you even go on Wikipedia, it will tell the history of this, being basement hand dug in 1935, for the colonists coming in and colonist visitors. And it's right here in Palmer, and it's just great to see the investment that we have in our community, taking things that don't seem to fit or work anymore, completely redoing them. And we have probably maybe a half dozen in the past couple years. So if you have a chance to do that, do that. I want to report on the library. Your staff is working really hard to get the temporary library set up and open on Arctic Avenue. It should be the beginning of the May that occurs. We also have our books and quite a bit of our operation over in Industrial Park on property that we leased. So we think it'll be pretty effective, although small, and I think it will serve us well until we can get to what's next for us. We have our RFP due for an architect on May the 19th, and I think that's where the fun starts. We will look at reviewing a selection for you to consider, and then we can really start thinking about what we want the next phase of our library. And I really think for you and I, this is really a legacy project for us. The current library lasted 37 years. I probably had a few more years into it if we didn't have the tragedy. But this could be a good half-century thing that really, will really impact positively our community, which the current library has. More than books, it has really been a nice resource for the family, for homeschoolers, for assistance with government type issues. So we hope to even supercharge that, and we all get to be a part of that. One of the things that City Council did this last budget, it allowed us to kind of do an evaluation, position review, and salary evaluation of our staff. That is slated to pretty much be complete toward the end of July. And then we'll be bringing back presenting those details, what we're finding, I think just in time to make any adjustments for the 2024 budget that's approved in October. So thank you very much for that. I think everybody knows it's needed. We need to look at that and do this right for our staff, retaining staff. Good stuff coming up. May 6 and 7, it's the Alaska Great Aviation Gathering. This is our third year at Palmer Airport and Fairgrounds. I think last year we had close to 30,000 people coming for those 3 days. No cost, a lot of fun stuff to do, and please, kind of hang out, show up, walk through. It's another great Palmer event, and we seem to have a lot of them. Speaking of that, we have another great Palmer event on May 9th through the 13th, as we're partnering with the Chamber. Seems like old times, community cleanup. We aim to make this bigger and better and really get this town really clean. Last year, City of Palmer did it on its own. We did a pretty doggone good job. but we had all that wind blowing stuff. So, half of your stuff was, 4 blocks away, and other people's stuff was on your property. So, should be a little bit easier, and we're hoping to really order some decent weather for that. And multiple bike giveaways, I'm hearing, are back, as opposed to the cheapos last year that only had 2. That was a manager, by the way. I wasn't pointing fingers at Brad. I think he was scared. That's all I have. Is there any questions?
Is there any questions from the manager? Josh, you still with us?
Yes, I am, yeah. I don't have any questions, though.
Okay. No questions, okay. Oh, go ahead.
Last minute here.
You learned from Mr. Best.
Sit next to him. Okay. Well, I was kind of wondering, I know we had talked kind of in the fall about, this is kind of not really, well, I guess a lot about the report, but we were talking about what we were going to do working with the homeless situation. And you had said,
We're doing this next.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Good question to highlight.
Thanks for asking. But I don't want to steal Sarah's thunder. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Next is the mayor's report. There's a written report in there, and as far as to outline anything, as the manager mentioned, I think this weekend is Who Let the Girls Out, isn't it? Okay, that's coming up this weekend. Also on Saturday is Saturday Story Time at the Muskox Farm, is being put on by the Friends of the Palmer Library. And I did attend a Friends of the Library meeting and had a little bit of discussion with them. It was the shortest meeting I've been to in a long time. When you get kicked out at a certain time, it really keeps the meeting short. But they're working hard and planning to, they're very focused. They raise money for books. That's what they do. They said the building is your problem with the city, that they'll do books. So I said, okay. And also, I don't think I put it in the report, but I did write an article for the People's Paper that titled, Where's the Palmer Library? Just trying to give it a little history and explaining where the little storefront was going to be opening up, hopefully sometime in May. And so, is there any questions for me?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Alcantara.
As always, thank you for your written report, as always. Hey, a little question on our May 9th special joint meeting with Parks and Rec Advisory Board. As a person who commuted to Anchorage for 12 years, 5 p.m. meetings can be pretty difficult. Luckily for me now, I'm only like 6 minutes from here, so 5 p.m. isn't as difficult for me as it used to be, but I just wonder if other council members, other members of the public, I just wonder, is there a way to either maybe kind of split this and start it at 5:30 and bleed over a little bit into our regular meeting? Or is this, I've never been to one of these special joint meetings, so this is a dedicated hour and I just worry about people being able to participate at that time of, that earlier time of night?
Well, I hesitate to shorten it to half an hour. Part of what it is, it's a joint meeting, and so they take roll call as well as we take roll call, so it's a longer process. There's like 14 people in charge that way. And I think we'll probably try to start on time, but if someone comes in late, that's, we'll just kind of keep going with it. I think as far as the teaser for it, they've been looking at the idea of trying to set up a veterans memorial over near the Pioneer home, the Veteran and Pioneers home. And so they're wanting to kind of get it on the table. The idea's been battered around, but they want to talk to us about it and try to get kind of some official recognition for the idea. And so, yeah, I hesitate to shorten the length of the meeting because of that.
Okay, understood. I guess my question would be, do they take any kind of public comment at that meeting or not?
Oh, I'm
Is
sure
that
there's
more-
audience participation as well, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was bugging the chairman and saying, it would be really good to have something in writing so that there's a bit of presentation that we can read so we can kind of start, start off with a quick start instead of a slow start. Okay? All right. Next we have the clerk's report.
I just wanted to remind the council of the 5 p.m. Parks and Recreation joint meeting on the 9th. That was the one thing that I had on my list, and I'm happy to answer questions.
So any questions for the clerk? Okay. All right, city attorney's report.
Good evening. I was told I was spoke too softly last time, so can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful, great, thank you, Councilman Tudor. I was requested to put together sort of a brief overview regarding Palmer's public safety approach, as well as handling sort of the public safety and livability issues. So in regards to some of the concerns that initially evolved with homelessness and the safety that was arise from concerns that were coming from local businesses, the city manager and the department's heads have come up with sort of a 4-element, a multi-fronted approach. So the first one is to educate the people, and that's primarily the focus of what this is going to be today, to educate the public about our public safety access and the process and some of the nuances, challenges that can come with why isn't there an arrest, why isn't there a charge, how does that come about? The second piece is an increased communication and collaboration with the Palmer businesses and the police department. This is being led by Chief Shelton and his police force. They've been meeting and working with individual business owners specifically to help identify the unique challenges that those individual businesses have vocalized and ways to solve those. And I'll give you some specific examples of that, just some practical steps further on. But particularly as it comes to trespass, I wanted to kind of use that as an illustration. That tends to be the most reoccurring concern. Often, not most, but one of the most reoccurring concerns. The third approach is collaborating with Palmer residents to participate in the Palmer cleanup. That's for everyone. But the city department heads have worked with me, and they're identifying specific property owners that could use, and these are specific ones, these are not volunteers, these are items that the department will be reaching out to those individual private owners, and we kind of had to look at some legalities regarding drafting some waivers and some permissions. So they're going to look at specific properties that where clearing brush, opening up line of sight and visibility will help discourage any potential camps or any hospitable locations for crime to be developing in. And so the more we can eliminate those, that's an ongoing maintenance issue. The department heads are in, I'm talking public works, fire and rescue, police, community development. They all have been working with these different private landowners to see what we can collaborate approach. We are limited. These are private landowners, but perhaps we can build a collaboration to open up visual line of sight and appearances, build fences. There might be some solutions that the city can offer. And so that is the other approach that is being done. And then the fourth element of this multi-pronged approach would be access to resources. So the Homeless Coalition is being led by Mayor Carrington. There's also Daybreak is now offering adult services and kind of care coordination. They're in Palmer. They're available. Connect Palmer is expanding local resources. So the police have printed out, and I wanted to make sure they're available for anyone. We have these little cards that are a quick resource for what are the some quick numbers for what is available for those individuals we meet that might be in need. We're not talking the criminal avenue. We're talking just someone that is in need. That's what these are for. And that is also working with potential options. I don't want to speak to that yet because funding and those pieces haven't come together, but there are working to continue and improve communication to our current available resources, as well as working with the various nonprofits, especially those that tend to be located in Wasilla, to see how we can expand resources in the Palmer area. My house is quite successful. We have the Matsu Health Foundation and others, and seeing, if they can send a little attention over here. So that is en route. the piece that I wanted to highlight, and I coordinated with the Chief of Police Shelton on this, who warned me not to talk too much like a lawyer and be too long. So we'll be quick and use some illustrations, but this is primarily focused, and we can do follow-up presentations as needed, but this is going to be primarily focused on how does public safety work in Palmer? Like, if you see something, what does that look like in terms from the phone call from the police to the court system? So we have a pattern that goes, and there's the handouts over here if anybody needs to look with at a flow chart. But basically, it begins with a citizen observes a potential crime or offense. Then they need to call, this is very primary, either the 911 or the police department's business line, and that's 907-745-4811. At that point, once the phone call occurs, dispatch receives the call and they will dispatch officers to our location. Officers respond and arrive on the scene. And those are the first primary 4 steps. I want to brag on Palmer Police Department a little bit. Their call response time is 47 seconds. From the average dispatch time is 47 seconds, and then it's 2 to 5 minutes to arrive on the scene. So our dispatch is 47 seconds, and then 2 to 5 minutes once they're there, depending on how far away the officers are, current call volumes, and so forth. This is significantly below the national average, so good job, sir. So once we now have the officers on site, so they're now at the scene. So what is the process that involves there? So we have officers are going to contact the complainant, the person who made the initial call. They're going to talk to any suspects and witnesses. And then those officers in their individual investigation are going to determine if any crimes have been committed. And this is, I think, for myself, what I've witnessed and from what I've heard from the police officers, probably where the most disconnect comes from the public. Like, they don't understand, we made a phone call, why aren't you making an arrest? Where's the disconnect there? So I thought it would be helpful to go through the Alaska statutes for what criminal trespass actually is. So it has, and you cannot charge anyone with a crime unless the elements of every single statute is met. So each crime has a minimum of 1 or 2 elements, and all of those have to be met in order for the police to be able to make an arrest, to do a charge, and for it to go through our criminal justice system. So for example, criminal trespass in the first degree, that's going to be the harsher one, is when a person, 1, they commit the crime of criminal trespass if they enter or remain unlawfully on land with intent to commit a crime on the land or in a dwelling. So let's take a couple examples. I wanted to do 2 scenarios, and these tend to happen the most in Palmer, and that's why we don't do arrests. The Palmer police doesn't respond as much. So Henry was trespassed from the ABC coffee shop for unruly behavior in the recent past, and he was issued a lifetime trespass advisement. So Henry shows back up at the shop, and the manager calls PPD. PPD responds and discovers that the employees have given Henry a cup of coffee. He's sitting there, he's sitting at one of the tables, and he's talking to them. I would like to interject, I love the compassion of our business owners. That's wonderful. But the challenge with this, in this particular instant with the compassion, is now we've undone the elements of the crime. So due to the fact that Henry was given a cup of coffee, a reasonable person would consider that an invitation, that they're not enforcing the trespass, that he needs to be removed. So because he's now invited, the element where trespass entered unlawfully, it's completely negated because he was welcomed with coffee. And so that's how that piece, that situation comes up quite often. The second example I wanted to highlight was Susan was trespassed from Mars grocery store by manager A for shoplifting. 4 days later, she shows up again at Mars and is reported to the police by the same manager. The police arrive on the scene. Manager A tells the officer that now they don't want to charge Susan with trespassing as they're uncomfortable testifying in court. So the police are now unable to enforce any trespasses at the Mars store because that manager is no longer willing to testify in court that Susan was in the store unlawfully. And that's an incident that also reoccurs quite often. So the next slide is going to be a summary of the overall process of a crime. So if you want to look at that flow chart, it starts at the top, and these are going to flow like this. A crime is reported and the police investigate. We either have no arrest is made or the arrest is made, a summons is issued. So not always does someone get delivered to jail. Sometimes the police will just take them back to the police station. They will issue them a summons, explain that they have to appear before court at a certain date and time, and release them. There's also times when the police make arrests and the Department of Corrections refuses to accept that individual into the prison. So that can be a conflict sometimes, particularly because the Mat-Su is so large. If the case is made and either arrest is made or a summons is made and the case is referred to the district attorney's office, this is also sometimes where we hear that things are not being enforced. And I wanted to share some of those challenges. So the attorney, then the district attorney, can either dismiss the case, or the case can be concluded by a plea bargain, or the case will go forward, and that is going to lead it to trial. And the process is within the U.S. The Palmer court system. So what are some of the reasons why arrest is not made? That's going to be because we have an uncooperative victim. That's the individual that feels uncomfortable testifying in court. We now don't have an uncooperative victim, or the victim disappears, or the witnesses are unsupportive, and there's not enough to enforce that particular crime. The other issue is lack of probable cause. The elements of the crime simply aren't evident, or the cops were called significantly too late, and there's no longer enough evidence to establish that crime occurred. Some of the other challenges are unable to locate or identify the suspect, and this happens when we're dealing with national chain organizations, the complainant, the person who made the call, whether that's the manager or someone else, they lack the authority to prosecute, to pursue, to be able to appear in court. There are some national chains that have specific policies based in place that will not allow for their managers to appear in court or to participate in the local prosecution process. And that's certainly a challenge from the Palmer Police Department's perspective, because now their hands are tied and they're unable to do anything about that particular situation. So that's why an arrest isn't made. The other issue, when we're not seeing something go straight through the court system process and end up in trial, and that's either guilty or sentenced, or guilty or not guilty, not to show a preference there, is the cases are dismissed once they've been submitted to the DA. So at this point, we have probable cause, we have the witnesses, but the DA's office, the district attorney's office, is dismissing the cases. Now, in defense of the district attorney, I was doing some researches on the number, and Mat-Su is the Mat-Su, the Palmer Courthouse, and all of the Mat-Su is within the 3rd Judicial Court. The 3rd Judicial Court includes Anchorage to portions of Valdez up towards Glen Allen. That's dictated by the Anchorage courthouse regarding the distribution of resources. So that includes our judges, the judicial staff, all of the DAs, all of the public defenders, and how many, as well as OPA, how much resources they get to handle the growing pieces out in the Mat-Su. And this has been a hot topic, particularly the legislature, back and forth for quite a while, but certainly the Mat-Su is growing. One of the reasons that the district attorney's office dismisses cases is a claim underneath it. So when you get a case dismissed, there's a printout and it explains why it was dismissed, and it's disproportionate to resources. Our district attorneys here, I think they just finally got full staffed. They handle 600 to 700 misdemeanors per attorney. That's just the misdemeanors. That's a tremendous caseload. And granted, misdemeanors can be pretty quick and we can pump those out, but 600 to 700 per attorney is an insane amount. So barring uncooperative victims and witnesses, case consolidation by the district attorney regarding this, we're going to hammer this one individual with multiple ones. Those are the primary reasons why the case is dismissed. The other part I wanted to flag is I did pull the Alaska Court Systems reports, and these are just our Superior Court filings, so these are felonies. But I wanted to point out that in the 2022 presentation to the legislature by our Alaska Court System, Palmer has changed, and this is just from 2020 to 2022, 17% has an increase in cases that they've had. And then 21 to 22 is another 2%. Meanwhile, Anchorage has dropped by 6%, and they're going down, and Palmer's going up. So I have lots of numbers that I'd encourage everyone to check out it's on the Alaska Court System, their latest 2022 report. If you want to understand why some of the cases either never make it to trial, the trials are significantly delayed, or the district attorney's office is pleading out or dismissing them because they're disproportionate to resources. And that's pretty much all I have for today. I was trying to be quick. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Heath. So I'm just curious in that report or just in your own research, is there a way to put a percentage on these pieces of cases concluded by a plea and attorney dismisses the case? Because I think I heard, probably watching Law and Order or something that 50% of the time it's dismissed by the attorney, 45% of the time it's a plea, and like only 5% or less, or far less than 5% actually go to your box of case moves forward to trial. Is there anything you have in mind to
I did not have
verify that?
specific data regarding to how the case was disposed, but in terms of the amount of cases that they had, and that those were ones that went all the way through. I was just digging through their pieces. So we had 2,964 filings in the Superior Court last year. We had of those they were handled. I believe those are the ones that went to trial. Those are just our felonies in the Superior Court. We had 14,491 cases, which is 13.6% of the statewide caseload. The majority of the breakdown of those is going to be the highest we had was probate cases, and then and that's in the death of someone. You have to file with the court to get your will taken care of and sort of and go through that process. So probate's the top, and immediately following that would be felonies, and following that we have domestic relations cases, and then China, children in need of aid, and then we have lawsuits, people suing each other.
Thank you.
Any other council have questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this presentation. This was really informative. I just had a question on the disappropriative resources with the DA. I was wondering, does it take into account, I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Does it take into account how often the person's been through the court system? For example, let's say Henry gets in trouble for trespassing and they can't process him with resources. If he gets arrested a few more times, does that mean he's less likely to have his case dismissed due to lack of resources, or does that mean he kind of moved to the top of the pile, so to speak?
Ideally, multiple arrests for the same issue would bounce you up in terms of charges, and it would be a mitigating it would be a factor that does not mitigate it, but it'd be a factor that would be increasing it according to our statutes. That's a very case-by-case decision. The district attorneys do release disproportionate to resources, and they are usually misdemeanors when they do that. But that is going to be a case analysis. It's going to determine on how solid are their witnesses, how solid is their evidence, how much of a threat is that particularly individual, how often have they been arrested should be a component, I'm sure, of that determination. I don't know their exact policy. I doubt it's written. I think that's a gut thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Deputy Mayor? Oh, no.
Yes, so I think there's some things that our body can do that I like to encourage you to do. First off, when you're talking to any complaints, have the person immediately call our police department. They're ready for it. We are full staffed. They want to serve, and I think there is, this sense of kindness, or this is not important enough for the police to handle. That is one way to change this behavior, is to encourage them, as soon as that happens, call the police. I think I'm hearing that when an issue should be calling the police or an instance, they'll talk to everybody except the police. And the police is who can do something about it. So number one. Number two, I think with Sarah's presentation and numbers, I like to ask if I could put together a resolution sent to the authorities and the governor's office asking for action on our court system and having proper attorneys there and judges to meet our need. You know, and recently we sent a couple resolutions on behalf of the Matsu Borough and the city of Wasilla. So I think maybe if you want to do that, it's Fairbout's. Let's go ahead and get them to do it since we stepped up for them. A couple other things that was kind of mentioned was that we intend to come back to you with some funding to the problem areas on personal property, on seeing if we get a hydro axe in there to clean out these visual areas so we can take better control of where the problems are. You know, clean it up, that sort of thing. We have had discussions with private property owners. We think that would help. Cleaning always helps the situation. And we have a property just east of the airport, the Briggs property, and I think the mayor and Mr. Best knows about that. It's turned into a major problem. It has been for a while. We've had 2 major fires there from vagrants setting, that sort of thing. It's a mess. There's a private property owner who is trying to get a hold of that, but he has $310,000 in lien on the property from judgments and back taxes. So I would like consideration if he gets everything in order and cleans that up, when we get guaranteed cleanup, to come back to city council and say, can we waive our costs that we're never going to collect anyways, in turn of them cleaning that up and making that property, you know, put back to use. And then the last thing I talked to you about, I'm working with the school district on putting an SRO officer in the Colony schools. We're still discussing that as far as money. I think they have more money than they want to give us, so we'll work on that a little bit. But we would have that additional officer for our summers and also for the fair. So those are some tangible things that will, I think, take some impact that we can do here at this table. One caution is this is not going away. This is something we always have to keep working at, and I think we need to be diligent. We've having new visitors come, whether we want them or not. They're already here, but we want to be kind, but move them to a place that they're much more comfortable than Palmer.
Deputy Mayor Meline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as I understand it, a lot of this came kind of at the directive of the council, kind of coming out of what was the meeting that we had for vagrancy. And I think that one of the questions that we had posed and kind of talked about is some of our city code, and that we're seeing, I mean, the code is there, but does that code, we wanted a little bit more advisement on whether that code had significant teeth or whether we needed to revamp those codes in a way that would give it teeth. But also, some of those codes pertain, I know that there is some collaboration that's happening with the businesses, but we're still seeing things such as behaviors that are being allowed, such as panhandling, things like that, that are bring about other behaviors as well that come with that. Have we considered, or is there conversations around that if we don't get effective participation from those particular businesses, can we legally fine them for not helping us or for exacerbating the issue? If you could maybe just clarify that.
I don't believe when it comes specifically to panhandle, so two parts of your question. The first part, in terms of evaluating our current code and the enforcement, particularly now that the police department is fully staffed, they've been on that recently since last time we talked. So there are parts of the city code that can be enforced. Wherever the city code is overlapped by the Alaska statute, we'll go with the Alaska statute. I would like to point out Palmer doesn't have a prosecutor, so it's challenging sometimes for particularly individual city, beyond a fine, like for us to go after criminal charges. We do not have a prosecutor like Anchorage does, so that's different. However, the large majority of our criminal what would be considered criminal elements of our code are covered and almost exact as the as Alaska state code. So of course they can be meet those elements and then have charges and go through our DA and that process there. In terms of increasing fining the business owners specifically, there may be portions where we can, probably not as it relates to individuals classically panhandling or something like that. Then we start to get into First Amendment rights of both the business owner as well as the individual asking for something. I do know that the staff, particularly the police, have really dramatically increased the conversations with larger businesses and being like, we need you to enforce this. And then if they can enforce items more and more, that gives the police more clout. And we're starting to see that build up occurring, right? So they're starting to enforce. They're like, okay, we're calling you. That is a trespass. This is the third trespass. Great. Now we can go have a conversation with the DAs. And that empowers it that way. I understand it takes a little bit of time, but that momentum is building.
Any other questions? Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess, school season's almost out, so we're talking, so you guys are gonna plan on having an SR over at Colony High next year? Is that, you guys are working on? Okay. I just wanted to take a minute and say, I think the SRO officers are pretty critical right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. And we have an excellent one in Officer Barkwood over at Palmer High. And I just can't say enough about that guy. He's pretty good. So thank you. Oh, and just that I think I said it, but I just think that it's critical to have an officer like that these days with everything that's going on. Thank you.
Councilman Best?
If I may, can I look at the city code 9.36.010, personal conduct in public? C, beg in any street, alley, or public place. In that situation right now where we have individuals that are standing on the sidewalks begging for money, panhandling, our code already stipulates that it's not allowed inside city limits. So what you're saying is because it's our code and not the state's code, it's a situation where we would have to prosecute something like that, or it is just a fine, and then we stack up 50 of these on that individual until we finally have the stomach to take action on that person and sue that person in kind of a civil court. I guess the city would be going after that to try to get that money back, but really that's not accomplishing anything because the person that's out there begging isn't really going to have any money to be paying for a fine anyhow. So in this situation, we're just pounding sand. It's not going to do any good. We have something on our code that we can't really enforce, and it really does no good. So that's where you have a lot of frustration right now. So in this situation, because our code isn't strong enough and or we don't have the resources, this is where the information back to council of, no, we don't have enough teeth, or we do have something that is completely worthless. That's the response back that I think Councilwoman Moline was asking for as a report back to how can we make it better as a body. And you go through a lot of our code, and we have similar situations like that all the time, and I think that we're all hearing frustration from the business owners, and I appreciate your explanation as well of the process. I think Many of the business owners are also frustrated with their side of the process because, like you said, the staff for the prosecutors is just overwhelmed, and or our tools aren't the right tools. But we also have a situation where we have nonprofits that are out there, Massey Health Foundation and all these kind of stuff that are out there collecting lots of money, and they bring all kinds of data. I mean, they partner with a whole bunch of different groups where they throw numbers at us left and right about, well, there's, 20 people that are causing 30% of all of our costs. Well, how come the nonprofits and the focus isn't then going after that? Instead, it's about creating all these other problems and going after and creating other situations that are, it's just wasting a lot of money. So what I'd like to challenge the nonprofits and the governor's office, appreciate everything that they are doing, but we're just going around in circles. And we're continuing to just shuffle the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. We're not getting anywhere. I just spent a couple of months going down to different cities throughout the United States and seeing the homeless issues that are out there. And just the sheer apathy with good hearts. Nobody wants to offend anybody. Nobody wants to say you shouldn't be doing that. You can't be crapping on the side. And we see it down here, right over here in front of McDonald's, where you got the homeless people that are out there, and we've got folks that are moment in time, drug addicts, or mental health issues. And we're not doing any better. And we continue to throw money at things, but man, I hear the business owners, and I know that they want to help, but I don't know that we can, with the tools that we have in front of us, with the state being the way that it is, the borough not having health powers, I don't know that we can solve this without having everybody come in here and start thinking differently. I'm frustrated.
Madam Attorney? Somewhere at the beginning, there was a quote of a code.
There
so-
was a quote of a code, and I'm wondering if the chief wants to jump in. Because we discussed some portions of that, and a lot of it does come back to the fact Palmer doesn't have a prosecution office. We don't have a prosecuting attorney. And there is an element where our strongest form of enforcement traditionally has been fines.
Looks like the managers invited you up.
It's a pleasure to be here today. So I do want to address a couple issues that Richard Best brought up with the code. One, he's correct in that the state can't enforce, or the state prosecutors can't enforce municipal code. So in order for us to do that, we would have to have our own prosecutor, which we don't have. Also, years ago when that code was penned, there was some issues with it constitutionally. We all have inalienable rights that are protected by our Constitution. And a blanket, this particular one that you mentioned is a good one. It's blanket, you can't be on any of the streets, sidewalks, alleyways, or anything in Panhandle. That has been tried several times throughout the lower 48 and other places, and municipalities have paid dearly to learn a lesson that that is something that is protected by the Constitution. There may be ways where that could be drafted better. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I've spent hours on the computer looking to try to find the perfect solution, and haven't been able to find it. But I found many examples of what not to do, and definitely enforcing or trying to enforce something that is in violation of somebody's, rights, is probably a place where we don't want to go. That being said, somebody had mentioned, I think it was Manager Musi, that these problems aren't going to go away. That doesn't mean that we roll over and quit at all. It means that we take action in what we reasonably can and follow the law, follow the Constitution, rewrite our laws. All that takes time. And, you know, you can have the best pen in the world and you're not going to be able to expunge bad behavior. But what we can do is we can take appropriate action when it does occur. And we can do things to mitigate. And I think what our attorney has talked about today is set us up with good tools in our tool belt that can help us as a city keep Palmer, Alaska at its best. A place where people want to come to, where the societal issues that we see right now are mitigated to some degree. We'll still have people come in and be acting out of pocket, but our goal is that our officers are called, we respond, we handle it immediately, and they're displaced. Or they learn that, hey, this is something that's not well tolerated here, that sort of thing. So hopefully that clears things up a little bit.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Moline.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, is there anything that you need that you don't have at the present, other than a prosecutor, that would enable you to better serve, to mitigate, that you don't have right now?
So there's a lot of things I could ask for, but really what we need is we need time. We need time to be able to do our job. We need time for the business owners to be able to bring the issues to the forefront, and we need time for the prosecutors to be able to, catch up with the issues at hand. This is not something that is, as much as I would like to be able to take care of tonight, to wake up in the morning and everything's great. It's something that's gonna take time. So time is what we need. I think y'all have been awesome at getting me the tools that I need to be able to staff your department, to be able to train your officers, to be able to hire good personnel and get them here, build good relationships with the business owners. I appreciate the business owners' support. Now we need time and we need the phone calls. And then we need to put pressure, and I think Manager Musi said, you know, it's a good time to make a resolution and take it to the state. And then let's start holding the state responsible for their end. And I think if we do that, it's not gonna be perfect this summer, but it'll be better. And then next summer it's gonna be a little bit better, and so on. And I think we'll be able to reverse some of this stuff that we're seeing. Will it completely go away? It will not. But it'll get to where it's at a tolerable level.
Thank you. Oh, Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, I would like to lend support in the manager's request to have a resolution for the governor's office, and I would also ask for council support to kind of put a challenge out there to nonprofits that are involved in the homeless and opioid epidemic, to challenge them to be better partners with the cities and municipalities, also with the borough. Thank you.
Second.
Yeah, I believe that resolution would not, I don't think there'd be anyone objecting to that. So, Mr. Manager.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Councilman O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question about, you're talking about the clear cutting and stuff like that. Is that them paying for clear cutting, or are we splitting the cost, or how?
We think we need to encourage that, and so it will be some type of partnership. We do have a couple absentee property owners where a lot of this stuff happens, and it's just going to be a trick to allow us to do it. But I think it will be paid dividends for that. I think, part of it is yes, enforcement. But if it's uncomfortable to have the behaviors that we don't want to have there, they will move on. We have, I'm guessing, a half a dozen individuals who are now no longer camping in Palmer because they're not allowed. We made it very clear to them. So they're camping outside of Palmer and making a daily trek into Palmer.
I've been
and back.
noticing that.
But it's, it's changing the behavior or not having that behavior acceptable, and there's some tools. And I know the heart of city council, you want to get this thing better. I like to say it's resolved, but it's and people love Palmer. Everybody loves Palmer, including people that we really wish they wouldn't love Palmer.
Thank you.
I guess we're still on the attorney's report. Any other questions for the attorney? Councilwoman Anzalotti. Oh, you turned it off.
Thank
There
you,
go.
Mr. Mayor. Is it, I don't know, I thought we were maybe planning on doing some sort of public presentation of what's in this. Would that be helpful to the public and we can encourage the business people to attend that? Or would that kind of not really result in, I don't know, would it be beneficial or not, do you think?
I'm willing to do whatever the council would like if we, did something to that effect. I do know that the chief of police and the police officers are talking to, and they're gonna cover the majority of those different details. This PowerPoint is also on the website, on the agenda, accessible that way, and then there's copies as well. So, and I know you have put together all those to-dos and nots, so, we can work on, if you wanted me to add anything to that, I can help with that piece. The key is conduct, right? Like if you witness and see conduct, the bad, inappropriate conduct is witnessed and it fits into an element of a crime, now we have an ability to arrest.
And that is one of the big things that the chief has stressed and the manager has stressed is that if you see something you think there's illegal activity, call the police. They basically are our experts on that, so. Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Tudor.
Sorry, this might be a question for Chief Sheldon. I'm sorry, it's at like 11:30 here where I am, so I'm kind of slow, but I was just wondering to kind of go off of what Councilman Best was mentioning about our codes that are just fines, and obviously if someone just can't afford the fines, it ends up not doing anything at all. But having those interactions with the police, have they seen that those people that are doing things that are violating city codes eventually leave and kind of move on? Or have they been saying that it doesn't have any impact whatsoever? I was just curious.
Did you want him to read?
And let me know if I need to clarify. Sorry, I'm a little tired, so I may not be describing my question very well.
Yes, I didn't quite catch all of your question. Could you?
So, basically what I was asking was, so if someone's doing something that's continually violating city code where the only recourse is a fine, right? And so for the example that we had was, for example, panhandling, which, in the city code is a fine, but obviously that's a constitutional question. But let's say it's a different thing that isn't a constitutional question that still results in a fine. If that person has several interactions with police, does that person usually, in your experience, end up leaving Palmer and kind of moving on, or do you see that person that's committing those violations of code still sticking around because they know nothing's going to happen? I was just curious.
So, yeah, good question. We see a mix of both. There are some people, when they run into a little bit of conflict with law enforcement, they'll go the other way. That is a small percentage. When it comes to fines, for those that are, for lack of a better term, I'll call them scofflaw. They break the law over and over and over and over again. The fines really mean nothing to them, but as they spend more time in court, so the criminal aspect of it, that tends to work a little bit better. And what will happen is it winds up displacing them. Kind of much like what we saw here recently with some of the camps around. The private landowners and stuff have been pretty diligent about removing squatters from their land. And as a result, now we have them living outside the city. They do walk back during the day, but I think this is kind of where it comes back to the time. We need time. The district attorney needs time. Like I said, Sarah pointed out, they're handling 600 to 700 misdemeanors at a time, plus a bunch of felonies on top of that. And obviously, the felonies have a higher priority on their list of things to do. So once they can get caught up and we got time, then I think through them being held accountable for the crimes they commit will force the majority of them to go somewhere where it's maybe tolerated more.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks. And I will say, I know I've had some discussion with a few different nonprofits and with the manager and trying to work on some different ideas to approach this differently. But, okay, with that, we're only about halfway through, so we're gonna take a break here, so we'll take a short break. Okay.
Do you want to sign first?
My name is Denise Stotts.
Get the microphone very close.
My name is Denise Stotts, and just give me a second. So we forget. We look at the vibrant, self-supporting retail spots, restaurants, and coffee shops and forget the investment that's been made to deliver Palmer from what were the doldrums, a fairly bleak landscape, and many of you won't remember 25 years ago what it was like. But there are those who will. It was a dead spot, one tumbleweed short of being a wide spot in the road. 25 years ago, my husband and I bought a home in downtown, 2 blocks north of here, and opened a business. Our son rode his unicycle absolutely everywhere. I walked. I didn't lock doors or feel any fear when my husband worked away. I traveled across the state selling Palmer, and I actively sold Palmer. I went from Homer to Fairbanks 4 times a year to do shows, brought people into town with Who Let the Girls Out, Friday Fling. All those things were built on the backs of real people building real businesses, raising real families. Then 4 years ago, just before I sold the business, my daughter and I were viciously attacked when a vagrant, and I'm going to use a name. The guy's name is Aaron. We all know him. I'm not going to pretend anything with you or anybody else. He emerged from the alley next to the shop. The level of his obviously violent intent resulted in incarceration, and we worked for months with the DA to keep him incarcerated. He had on that day been in contact with the police 8 times previously the day he was arrested. Hear this. Your police department were interacting with Aaron 8 times the day that he was finally arrested, threatening to kill my daughter and I. Let's take this seriously. Make eye contact with the people who are asking you to make a change. We sold Palmer as a great little place to live. Grow old in Palmer. Bring your family to Palmer. I wouldn't live in Palmer right now if you gave me my house back. Gave it to me. At the end of 7 months, Aaron was clean, well-fed, medicated. He was calm and communicative, capable. And you know what? On a good day, Aaron can still politely ask you for the $6 he needs for a joint. But if you don't give it to him, you watch what happens. He begins to froth at the mouth and scream at you. It's really convenient. There is no nuance in this, Sarah. There's no nuance here. I came from South Naknek, Alaska, and there is nobody that's going to call South Naknek anything other than what it really is. And I moved to Palmer, and I thought I'd moved uptown. I didn't feel much like uptown anymore. It was like kind of a... Recently, I've had 2 occasions to come into downtown. And twice I've had to contact your police officers, and you're absolutely right. 47 seconds, 50 seconds, 2 minutes, they're there. But their hands are tied. Stop tying their hands. I will stop talking, but I would hope that some of you will take the time to give me a call and talk about possible solutions. Bicycle riding police officers would be one good solution. Pay them well, keep them on the streets.
Thank you. Is this Shay O'Malley?
She's my daughter.
Hi, this is Shay O'Malley, and I'm here to back my mother up on getting police walking in Palmer, or at least biking or something to protect not only the people who live here, but the tourists and the children who walk home each day, and the little kids who go up to the playgrounds and have to be ran away by me and my siblings because there's a homeless man in there. I shouldn't be... Being 17, it is not my job to protect children. It is the people of Palmer's, and what I mean by that is we should be acting by letting the police act as well, and not forcing them to have their hands tied. There is a problem, and it's not, we're not we aren't the problem, and it's hard to see. We can't keep handing them money and expecting them to go away when they feel like they can get food here and they can be safe. We need somebody to try to keep people from coming back into Palmer after making the day's trek to go back to the outskirts. We need somebody to be here and be protecting people at all times. I shouldn't have to worry about my siblings walking around Palmer. This needs to become a safe town again, for children and adults. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
Of course.
Kelly McKay Dolphy.
My name is Kelly McKay Dolphy. I'm here tonight representing both of my businesses and being a resident of Palmer for 45 years. I prepared a speech, but after what I've heard tonight, I cannot even begin to accept the fact that we are concentrating on criminal trespass charges. These guys are committing crimes. It took me one phone call to a criminal prosecutor to find out 4 Alaska statutes that these people could be put away on. I'll read you part of my speech. 3 incidents last week. 1 had 2 kids, the ages of 13 and 14. That's not including her incident that she had last week also. They came into my business and they had to hide out. I asked them why. And it was because there was 2 men on the sidewalk in an alcove that were scaring them, that were saying bad things. We had an officer drive by and say, "Good job, girls, stick on the other side of the sidewalk." So you want these 13, 14-year-olds to go on the opposite side of businesses where they cannot duck in. This is what our town is. You guys have the options. The police have the tools. They need to charge them right. People call. Not once have I ever been called, have I ever been said, "Would you like to charge, this is what they can be charged with. Would you like to charge it?" I've called. Just a couple weeks ago, a problem child for one of the bars, literally, had his rear end flat out facing the road with his fingers in it. What the solutions came up, you had all winter. We were here last fall begging for help for this not to happen. We are back here again. And it is worse than ever. And as soon as Sullivan Arena gets closed down in April, it's gonna get worse. So what are we gonna do about it? Continue? I'm gonna go ahead and use his name now. I was politically correct in this. You have Aaron, 37 criminal cases on him, the majority being over 2020. 5 already this year. There's 5 criminal trespassing. I sat there and listened to him tell people that he's going to effing kill them. He chased one of my employees in the door. And she sat there and she didn't call the cops because they literally came up and was talking to Aaron for 10 minutes. And he walked away. Walked away. As far as I'm concerned, that is an assault charge. That is an assault 4 charge. He's already been convicted of assault. I have a lot more to say. I'll give you a copy of my speech.
Thank you. Later in the meeting, there's a second audience participation. So, Jackie, go for it.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Jackie Goforth from Palmer. I got a few questions for you. Are the X-rated movies ever at the Academy Awards? Have they ever been there? Golden Globes, screenwriters. Do you know why? Because what they do is prurient sex. It means a massive interest in sex. There's nothing there other than that. Now, Do you know where it went in the literary? Into the books. Now, did you ever hear about Sullivan versus New York Times? It's a 1964 U.S. Supreme Court decision. You know what it says? It says that debate always should be robust and open, and that vitriolic language can occur at times. That was by Justice Brennan in 1964. We are allowed to speak however we need to. Now, how about tacit approval? You ever hear about tacit approval? Do you know what that means? That means you agree through your non-action. In other words, if you know something's happening and you don't do anything about it, that means you're okay with it. I was driving a car. I always have a seatbelt on. If I allow my passenger to not have a seatbelt on, I deserve the ticket because I allowed that. It's okay. How about a basic librarian job description? You ever hear of that? You know what it is? They're supposed to know what's in those books so they can help the reader find what they're looking for. You ever hear what the UN just put out? Anybody? The UN just put out, ready? Sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual. They just put that out. And do you know what the fact checker said? Where the report calls for the decriminalization of consensual sexual conduct, it clearly refers to adolescents and not children. This is semantics. Now, before we go, I know my time's up. This is the amount of books that are in the Matsu libraries. Now, I want you to know that Palmer is going to get immense kudos because this is Palmer. And I would have done it last time, if I hadn't been chastised and shamed. So this is for the clerk. Please get this to the librarian for me. And thank you. Please tell her thank you.
Cindy Hudgens.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Hudgens, and I live in Palmer. And some of the comment that was made tonight on the vagrancy issues, I'm appalled. When in society, when by law did the criminals have more rights than the victims? We're seeing this all over the country. What insanity is this? I mean, 3 children in a Christian school get gunned down and the victim is the shooter? Wow. This girl gets beat and there's nothing that can be done? I can't even comprehend that. How are criminals protected by the Constitution? Don't we have Alaska criminal law, not just Palmer City codes? I mean, Alaska criminal law encompasses all of the state. I don't even understand it. I mean, I was going to come up here and talk about the things going on with the agenda, that there's a group of people out there that are trying to ban books. Ban books. You know, these books that we have issues with, we're not trying to ban them, which we couldn't anyway. They could still be purchased on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. You know, they're still there. They're not illegalized. But why are they pushed on children? I mean, I got a book sent to me with some excerpts from a book that is given to 14-year-olds to read in school. I wouldn't even read this stuff out loud. It is appalling. Absolutely appalling. What is going on? Criminals are protected. Children are sexualized. Taking away all morals. When morals are totally deleted from society, this is what we have. We have rampant chaos, criminals, crimes, riots, It's ridiculous. Laws are there for a purpose. And children should be protected from filth in the libraries and the school libraries that is aimed at these children. No. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation that hasn't spoken already at this one? There's another one coming.
Mike Malevsky. I still live in beautiful downtown Palmer, 325 East Fireweed Avenue. I wanted to talk about some of the things that Jude mentioned, but I'm going to save that for later, so I'll come back. Rather than that, I'd like to talk about death and dying. I want to do that because two people who I've been intimately familiar with for a number of years died recently. One was a longtime DJ at our station over 10 years. His name was Dan Grota. Dan was a veteran. He was a retired Army sergeant, and he came to us early on with many skills. He wrote well, he drew well, but he had not spoken on the radio before. And 10 years later, arguably, he was the best of the 10 DJs we had. He passed away suddenly. He lived over in Wasilla, but he was always in Palmer. He came to the station, but when the service was held on Friday, the people who attended, there were various people. There was an Army chaplain, but there were people from the bookstore. There were people from Vagabond Blues. There were people from the guitar store because he had worked there. There were people from the Frontiersman where he had worked and written. And they all had a very positive statement, or three, about their encounters with Dan Grota, who in some respects you might say was in the background, but he was there. And the really important thing was he chose Palmer to come to spend his time. He ate lunch there, he ate coffee. He walked. He walked around by the airport. He walked other places. I wanted to mention that because I think he deserves the mention. The service was profound. A second person, and I might not have time to go into much detail with him, was Howard Bess, a long-time person with lots of roots and lots of accomplishments, setting up all kinds of nonprofits that performed tremendously, retired Baptist minister, and a gentleman who died in the Pioneer Home. I was privileged to visit with him before he passed away. And the thing I wanted to mention was he could say, Mike, I'm dying. And it wasn't like, I've given up, I'm going to die. It was, that's what happens. I've got a number of ailments, and I'm dying. And he was okay with that. And I think those two messages are very important at this time. So I'm happy to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken for audience participation? Okay, we'll have another one. Close audience participation. Public hearings. Resolution number 23-011. Authorize the Palmer City Manager to accept the Volunteer Fire Assistant Grant funds awarded by the State of Alaska Department of Natural Resources Division of Forestry and appropriate the funds to the City of Palmer Fire and Rescue in the amount of $5,759.45 to purchase wildland fire equipment. We will open this public hearing. This is for anyone to speak concerning this specific resolution. So anyone wishing to speak about the resolution about the wildland fire grant? Okay, we will close that public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilman Tudor, seconded by Councilman Alcantra. Is there any questions of the manager, discussion? Councilman Alcantra?
Yeah, that's my mic's on, I'll ask a question. Great Chief Cameron, I'm just curious why the number was so precise for the city of Palmer, and I saw a lot of $6,000 grants to other entities across the state. And your number, I'm sure it's an easy explanation, but 5759.45 right to the, penny, and it just sparked my curiosity.
Mr.
Thanks.
Manager, is it okay if we torment your chief a little bit?
Have at it.
Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. So that grant, when you apply for it, you have to specify exactly what you're purchasing. And all of our wildland fire shelters, anytime we go on a fire, wildland fire, our crew have to have a wildland fire shelter on them. 2 years ago, there was a massive recall on all the fire shelters. And so I was able to purchase through this grant 10 shelters, and that's the exact amount of 10 shelters with that. If I went over, then I'd be dipping into my other budget, which I have other uses for.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any questions for the chief while he's there? All right, thank you, Chief. There's no further questions. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Vest,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Maleen,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Anzalati,
Yes.
Councilmember Ojala.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, okay. Next, resolution number 23-013, support of the designation of the Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation as the Metropolitan Planning Organization of the Mat-Su area. We will, do we want a staff report? No, I believe, well, I'm not sure what the manager meant. What we're gonna do, this will be a public hearing, and then we will have another public hearing at our next regular council meeting. So, if anyone wishes to speak to this, we'll open the public hearing for the, yeah, that's fine. And,
Cindy Hudgens again.
okay. This is supposed to be concerning the
Yes. it is.
MPO, MVP for transportation, et cetera. Okay.
Regionalization, I think that's how it's pronounced, is the stepping stone to global governance by creating a parallel government than funding it. These MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation, that is exactly what this is, a parallel government that is funded by federal funds. They're given $50,000 to run their little nonprofit, to have control. Where does your guys' say go when this steps in? With various committees, what committees, how many people have the say over what goes on here? This is more government control, not less. This is part of the agenda with the United Nations, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development and Regional Plans. Do you know where the term sustainability comes from? Well, it comes from the United Nations 1987 report, Our Common Future. Did you know in this report, it tells us that single-family homes, private vehicles, appliances, meat eating is all considered unsustainable. It's all part of the World Economic Forum. Does anybody even know what the World Economic Forum is? Oh my goodness. How can we even consider giving our authorities over to this kind of an organization, over to something like this? Did you know that the MPOs can totally change land use without property owner notification? Whole areas could be redesignated as transit-oriented development / mixed use. Then the whole area could be rezoned. You want your home rezoned? Taken right up to be a transportation development? Like I said, it's all part of the World Economic Forum. I know I've brought that up several times, and if you don't know what it is, please do yourself a favor and look into it. It's also inclusive of 15-minute cities. I mean, okay, yeah, the package is pretty. We can walk everywhere in town, but that's not the point. The point is control. Control of every aspect of your life. Then we get those carbon credits in there. It's all part of the same thing. And if you eat too much meat, then you can't go visit your kids in Anchorage because they're out of your zone. Oh my goodness. We need to reject global governance. We need to keep our local government. We're losing our liberties. Our liberties are at stake.
And that's your time.
Oh, I didn't even hear it. It goes so fast. Thank you.
So this is a public hearing for the Matsu Valley Planning for Transportation Resolution.
Jackie, go forth again. Okay, this thing was set up from the 2020 census. And in the meantime, they did the most creative meandering around to find a zone that they could call an urban development. They had to get 50,000 people in there, and so they created it with Palmer. They went through and grabbed Equestrian Acres, grabbing my neighborhood, and then they went through and grabbed Wasilla and out toward Connect, Goose Bay. And if you look at the designation, all they did was draw boundaries so they could find homes, because they had to have enough residents in order to make an urban zone. Now, once they get this urban zone, and there are six entities that have directors in there, and those directors come from the Kinnick tribe, the Chickaloon tribe, the state of Alaska, Wasilla, Palmer, and Matsu Borough. Now, you have the Chickaloon tribe that wanted to police Palmer, is going to have control over Palmer, the transportation area, and they can rezone whatever they want to. Now, remember when I told you about 15-minute cities 2 weeks ago? I did some more research that came from the 880 thing, something called 880. It was a 2019 fancy thing online talking about 880. And the people who were responsible for bringing that in and saying that Palmer was, well, doing it right now, are two people who used to be on this council and got recalled. One of them didn't. One of them didn't get reelected. So the group that thinks they're running Palmer may actually get to Palmer, but let's say that in this zone, they decide that there's no longer going to be gas-powered cars because they're in charge of transportation. There's only going to be electric cars. So in 2028, hey, nobody can sell any gas in that entire metropolitan thing because there's this whole oversight of federal government that is overseeing everybody's life, and you didn't even elect them, and they're getting $500,000 a year. But it took them a whole year of creative boundary checking to decide to get this urban zone. This urban zone is ridiculous. It's not nice and set up. It's all over like a Lego thing. I'm telling you right now, I am not for it, in case you didn't notice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on resolution number 23-013? Okay, am I closing this public hearing and? Okay, I'll close this public hearing, but I'm stating that we're going to have another public hearing.
They have to introduce it.
Hmm?
They have to introduce it. They have to put it on as a resolution. They don't have to vote on it today, they have to move to introduce it.
So we have to-
Put it on the floor.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
all right, so I guess we need a motion to get this on the agenda so we can then extend it to the next meeting. We need a motion in a second. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we won't vote on it tonight.
Right.
So I need a motion in a second.
Move to approve?
Councilwoman Anzalati's moved to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, take your pick. All right, and that just gets it onto our agenda, and then I'm declaring that we will bring it up as another public hearing on May 9th. Okay,
So I'm clear. Bring it up again on May 9th.
for another public
The
hearing.
earliest we take action is May 23rd, though, correct? Or are we
No.
taking action next time? Okay,
We could vote on it after,
thank you. Just
Us-
clarifying.
or you can postpone it to whichever. So, okay, now with the council's indulgence, I would like to rearrange the agenda and put council comments next before action memoranda. It takes a vote of the council.
So move.
Second.
So I'm basically just moving council comments forward so that we get to speak after that. Okay.
Good.
Is something wrong, Mike?
Mr. Mayor, you do not have to vote on that. We moved and seconded.
Right, but okay. Right, but we said we're gonna have a second public hearing, so we can't vote on it if we're gonna have another public hearing.
You moved and seconded that you would do this, but you didn't vote to do it. I checked the clerk. My apologies.
Yeah, okay. All right, so back to the question of moving council comments to being right before action memorandum. Madam Clerk, can you go ahead and call the roll?
Councilmember Anzalati?
Yes.
Councilmember Ojala?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous?
All right, and I'll start just by commenting, I was thinking of asking the clerk to maybe bring forth something in the future about rearranging our agenda, and this would be one of my ideas, is to put council comments maybe a little further up in the meeting, like after public hearings, so that we can comment about things that have happened so far in the middle of the meeting. So that's my comment. Councilman Tudor, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to say thank you for the presentation for the Arctic Winter Games. I just want to say I think we're all very excited about that. And just thank you to everyone who presented to us and talked to us about public safety. I know this has been a very frustrating thing for a lot of people. And, you know, I'm down here in DC and I've been seeing just kind of how bad things can get. And it really makes me miss Palmer. And we're looking forward to get back and working on this issue some more, you know, and kind of dealing with some, really made me think of a quote I saw from Thomas Jefferson where he said the execution of laws is more important than making them. It's something that we could definitely take to heart. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Alcantara? This is your council comments. You just get the one shot.
One bite at the apple,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate the folks that came out and testified tonight. Pretty heart-wrenching and, you know, definitely something that needed to be reminded of again, especially O'Malley's testimony, Ms. Dolphy and Mr. Arts definitely took some, it was very emotional and makes me worry about our fine little town, which I think still has a lot of appeal, and hopefully we can make some changes that'll make people feel safer in our town. I appreciated Mr. Molesky's comments, especially about he didn't get quite enough time about Howard Best, and Howard Best is someone who obviously has been around the valley for a long time and taking care of his wife for many years, and sad to hear that news. As far as other things, I think, you know, we need to take certainly a very cautious and slow approach on the resolution that we took a couple testifiers on tonight, and give folks an opportunity to come speak for or against. I heard the against loud and clear tonight, and wonder if there'll be people potentially on the other side of the issue. Other than that, there's a lot of great stuff coming up in the future. I do look forward to Palmer Cleanup Week, and do think it's gonna, you know, we're getting out of the rough winter and a very long spring, and I'm looking forward to turning the calendar to May, and looking forward to all the events that we have coming up in this next month and through the summer. Thank you.
Councilwoman Anzalati.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Moline, would you like to go first? Is that okay?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Okay, so-
Deputy Mayor Moline.
That's okay. with Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. No, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know that this has been a lot of very passionate conversation in regards to the businesses and investments and with the issues that you've been having, because I have these conversations probably 3 times a week. If it's not about that, it's about another issue. But, I will tell you that I think that we need to, we have to be a more aggressive approach on this, and however we do it, we can do it with respect, but we have to be more aggressive. I don't want to be put into a position where we lose what we all value so much in Palmer. Especially our youth who have been subject to this. I've heard so many stories as of late that it's blowing my mind. I just can't fathom that our youth cannot walk down the street and feel safe. That's just, I grew up here. I used to walk down the street. My mom used to drop me off in the middle of Palmer, and it was a free-for-all until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the summertime. It just, I just can't fathom that we're here, but we are. And so if there is something that we can do, we have to do it, and we have to be more aggressive and more pointed with it. I would like to ask for support and propose that we research what it's going to take to have our own prosecutor.
Second.
Thank you.
Good.
The next thing I would like is I would like to offer the chief of police, is it gonna take $10,000? I wanna get them outfitted with bikes for patrol. I wanna give him what he needs. I would like to ask for support in that. Thank you.
Third.
Okay, I'm not done yet. I'm sorry, but I'm just not done. I'm a little worked up tonight. MPOs, let's go there. I tell you, I don't know how I even got work done this week because my regular job, researching this MPO stuff. You want to talk about going down a rabbit hole, holy smokes. What I'm going to say is that the census that was conducted and the way that they did that census is a big stretch. There's a margin of error by 10% in how they conducted that census. And we have the opportunity, not only do we have the opportunity, but we have the obligation to challenge it. It's a stretch. And if we're going to give up rights to something like this, that is an unelected body, that really, and we don't even have to. The way I understand it is that we don't have to be part of that MPO. So I just, those are just my comments on it. I think that please go home, do your research, and get to know what the MPOs are all about. Study some of the other cities that have done MPOs, as well as Anchorage's plan for an MPO. Green New Deal, that's what I'm gonna say. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for affording me the time, extra time.
Do you want me to come back to you, Councilwoman Anzalati? Go ahead. Okay. I should just explain, there normally is, right before adjournment is when council comments are, so I kind of surprised them by moving it up.
Yeah.
But,
That's okay, I voted for it.
okay.
So. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad I asked you to go first, but I'm also not because I don't know how to follow that. That was good. I agree with you, Deputy Mayor Moline, and I am in support of your thoughts on both the MPO and also the vagrancy issue. And I'm really thankful that you guys are here to speak to that and tell us your experiences. As the manager of a coffee shop in downtown Palmer, I've experienced the same, not maybe as intense as you guys have, but my not my employees, my coworkers and I have had countless interactions with both Aaron and as other well-known individuals around Palmer, and I concur with your feelings that if I walk around Palmer for an extended amount of time, I carry because I don't feel safe just walking around by myself, and it's definitely getting out of hand. I know, as Councilmember Tudor was saying, you can go somewhere else and see that it's much worse, but it starts somewhere and it starts like this, and I don't want to see it get worse at all. So I'm in support, and I'm here to represent you guys, and I want to do that well. And so, yeah, I'm in support of making whatever moves we can to support the police department and to make sure that it doesn't get any worse than it is and that it gets better. So thank you guys.
All right, Councilman Ojala.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm having kind of a hard time focusing on some of the other stuff that's being said up here because I am so angry about the situation in Palmer with the homeless people. I just like a week ago, we were driving past the train in front of the Home Depot. My 6-year-old says, "Dad, let's go look at yeah, let's go look at the homeless people. Let's go look at the train." I was like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Please." And I'm like, "Okay." So we go over there. I mean, we're there like 10 minutes, and here we go, right? Right in front of his establishment, there's a bum rolling around on the ground, drunker than you can imagine. Police come and talk with him. He goes away, but like, I just want to stop and look at the train with my kid. I carry 2 all the time. And you see that, and you just check your stuff, make sure everything's ready, just in case, because it's getting that bad. I gotta call my wife and be like, "Hey, there's a guy walking down the street. Maybe you should take the kids to school this morning." And that's it's not really acceptable. But anyway, I'm very upset about that situation. And I will say that I'm doing the best I can from my end to hold up the city of Palmer's end on what is available for us to do. I was going to talk about the MPO a little bit, but I don't really want to. I think it's a bad idea for a nonprofit to be in charge of anything. Thanks.
Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the vagrancy issue, it's not just our problem. It's not just an American problem. It's kind of out there all over the place right now. It has to do with certain levels of hope not being available to some folks. People have just lost faith. But the participation is what we're seeing. We know that there's passions. There's people that want to help. We don't know how to help because on one hand, that is kind of our problem. We heard it tonight from the attorney that compassions actually cause us to have a little bit of problem. And it's actually at a much deeper level. We have passionate people that are not wanting to have people be inconvenienced or to feel pain. And what we're hearing is we actually have to inconvenience some of these people with processes or clearing stuff out, making notification, calling somebody being accountable for each other. We were talking in the break, society has kind of pushed away from making an observation and making a comment. Everybody gets called a Karen. Nobody wants to be the hall monitor, right? If you see something going on, well, you're not the police. It's not your job to do that. You just go about your business and just deal with what you're dealing with. And that's where we've kind of gotten away from things as a society. You know what? If something is wrong, we're going to call it out. Now, we have a little bit more vocal group on council and within our community and within Alaska itself. You know, a lot of times we've been the ones that have been unafraid to call things out. Well, we're getting to that point again where we're all having uncomfortable conversations about a situation. And, you know, on one hand, we as a city can kind of step up and we can cause ourselves to be challenged in courts, or we can kind of try to do things a little bit differently. It's going to take, like the chief said, it's going to take time. It's going to be small incremental changes. There's not going to be any giant one solution to solve everything. But the state must come up with a better solution for these vagrancy issues when it comes to the individuals that are 10 or 12 in a community that is just dragging the system down. The state has to come up with a better solution. So I hope that resonates back to the governor, the governor's people that are out in the valley listening, that we're hungry for a solution. And we've got people that are willing to roll up their sleeves, but we need some better ideas.
And Mr. Manager, just to make sure we understand that, so I believe we're asking you and the attorney to come up with a proposal to present to us about a prosecutor, a city prosecutor. And that's something that would come to council and.
Yes, I believe our police chief has already been working on that issue.
Okay.
I mean, that is one part.
Right.
Having somebody that represents us as opposed to throwing another document on the pile. There is still going to be a problem when getting that action into court because it's somebody on our behalf and getting it through the system. And then it was also mentioned that fines to some of these people mean absolutely nothing. They have nothing. You know, what is the response? But
Okay, and then also, I was going to remind you that I think somebody mentioned to you the idea of bikes and cops before.
yes, and so we already
So maybe
planned for
you and the-
that.
you
So
and
if
the chief
our
can work
officers
on
get a yellow bag and pick up garbage this weekend, they have a chance to win a bike. 2 Saturdays.
Okay, maybe you and the chief could flesh out a little more past that.
They pick up garbage every day.
Okay.
But seriously, we will work on that. There's also a possibility of partnering with the groups that those actually are donated and available. And I think this is not a new idea. This has happened in the past. And we've already had, myself and the chief already had discussions. So it's good to have some support. And we think this is something that generally officers would be willing to do. I mean, that's one thing on having a process and something available, but if they're not willing to do it, it doesn't mean much. But I think we can thread that needle and have both those things occur.
And then I was going to offer as explanation, our agenda is actually dictated to us from our own code, which is why we had to vote to rearrange things. So that's where I was going to ask the clerk to see what would it take to do a code change to maybe rearrange, at least to me, the council comments. Well, I thought we'd try it this way and see. I think we prefer this method, but we can talk about that some more. And next we have action memoranda. Action memorandum number 23-020, directing the city manager to notify the state of Alaska of the city council statement of non-objection of the license renewal of the Alaska State Fair license number 39. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, I think, by Councilman Tudor. Do we have any questions on that? Go ahead and ask the question.
Just a question of the clerk, did we receive any comments? No. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments, or ready to vote? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Ojala,
Yes.
Councilmember Anzalati,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay. Action memorandum number 23-021, approving a council community grant to Rodeo Alaska in the staff recommended amount of $4,500 for the 49th State PRCA Extreme Bros and Music Festival, with $1,500 to be paid by the City Council Community Grant and $3,000 to be paid by the city manager's marketing funds. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Do we want any kind of report or questions of the manager? Councilman Alcantra.
Yeah, I think there's a person in the audience that might want to talk about it if you can, but also I wanted to ask the manager, which you already pointed out, Mr. Mayor. He must really love rodeos, because this is the first time I've seen a grant for $4,500, and I don't know this $3,000 city manager's marketing funds, or what line item I voted on for that, so I'm curious. Is that all the money you have, or do you have other money in that manager fund? Thank you.
This is a one-time special deal.
One-time special deal, okay. So, if the council doesn't have any comments, we can vote. All right, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please? What?
Okay, I thought you were gonna see if they had any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Well, I don't even know the gentleman, but I make a comment. He's been waiting here since 6 o'clock, I think, to give us a little, like, maybe 1 minute presentation on how important this event is, maybe.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know if Mayor will let you do it.
So he gave you 1 minute, so.
Well, thank you.
We can give you up to 3. so.
Well, I'll start with by saying thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all the city council members. Thank you so much for allowing me to sit in. There's some impactful information that's been shared here tonight, but I am here to attest that this city is by far the best city, in my opinion, in the state. I look forward to spending as much time out here year in and year out, bringing family-friendly community events to a great town, a great city as Palmer. Everywhere we look, we know we have cleanup to do in our communities without question. But as my promise to y'all in the entire city that's out here listening tonight, I promise you, Rodeo Alaska and many, many volunteers and the hard-earned efforts that this city has been so helpful in supporting. We're going to bring you a family fun event that everybody will be able to enjoy. It's a safe, family-friendly event, and there will be lots of animal, I should say therapy animals that will be at this event. So we welcome everybody. On behalf of Rodeo Alaska and our entire team, we thank you so generously for your continued support. And we've been truly blessed to have this event. And this year, we're super excited for the Extreme Bronx, the Calgary Stampede for the first time ever is coming to Alaska. Anybody that follows rodeo knows that they have the most prestigious bucking horses in the industry. And we will have over 30 of the top professional rodeo cowboys, bronc riders that will be up here competing. So again, thank you all so very much for giving me the time here to spend with y'all tonight. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Just real quick,
Councilman
for the record,
Alcantra.
are you Frank Kowalski, or are you somebody
sir.
else? You are. Okay. I don't know if you said that at the beginning and I didn't catch it, so I'm
Okay.
making sure. Thank you.
All right, so I think we're ready to vote. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilmember Anzalati,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline,
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes?
Councilmember Best,
Yeehaw.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ojala,
Yes.
Probably should count that
Unanimous.
as a yes,
sorry.
in case you're wondering. All right.
Thank y'all
sir.
very much. God bless y'all.
All right. Action memorandum number 23-022, authorizing the city manager to purchase new mobile radios in the amount not to exceed $322,177.71 through the awarded Homeland Security SHSP grant funds. What's the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Is there any questions for the manager? Comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll.
Councilmember Ojala,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Angelotti.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Action memorandum number 23-023, authorizing the Palmer City Manager to purchase fire hose from Ellen Curtis utilizing capital project funding adopted in the 2023 City of Palmer budget. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any questions of the manager or the chief or Deputy
Yes.
Mayor Malee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was there, we had already budgeted for this, isn't that correct, Mr. Musi? And was it in the amount of, was it 100,000? What was the amount? I think it was 100,000.
It is more than what we're requesting. I'm not sure
Okay.
exactly, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank
We
you.
would note that if we were short
Okay, thank
in
you.
the AM.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilman Alcantara.
I just point out, I think they expended all but about $5, so well done.
All right. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Angelotti,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Moline,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Ojala,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
unanimous.
All right. No unfinished business, new business, record of items placed on the table.
Documents from Ms. Goforth and documents from Chris Tyree.
Okay. All right. Next, we have our second audience participation. Just a reminder, the views and opinions expressed during audience participation are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect.
Where's the sheet?
Oh, we need the clipboard, Mr. Manager. Could you grab that for us? So we'll give the people that signed up the first dibs.
No, over here.
No, just bring it here. I'll write names down if they didn't.
He's the mayor, you know.
Okay. So please state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Travis. I live in Palmer. And I was the first one that came here, talked about the recycling in San Francisco. And I would like to add, while I was in San Francisco, obviously has a homeless problem. Everywhere you go inside of a convenience store, if I want to get any certain kinds of items or snacks, everything's all locked because of the rampant theft from the homeless people. And recently in Portland, Oregon, they decided to decriminalize all drug use. Think about that for a moment. And I've heard about the people here, express their concerns about the homelessness. Well, in those cities, all of this is the result of homeless people. And I think there's a difference between compassion and enabling. And this is what I'm seeing is enabling, not compassion. Homeless people does not deserve any compassion whatsoever. They're criminals. And I don't think that we should be, as you mentioned before, that they've been handing out coffee, while at the same time trying to shoo them away, but at the same time just giving them stuff. I don't think they should be giving them anything. I think the one thing that they should be given is a bullet in the head, and we need to attack this from the how do they say it, bull from the horns, bull for the horns, and we should start seeing some action here, and whether it's I don't know, when the Sullivan Arenas starts to close, I'm kind of worried that there'll be some explosions all around the place, and I think there should be a reintroduction of dang it, what's that? The right to carry. What is it when you're trying to defend yourself? And I think there should be some exceptions for I'm sorry, I'm having some brain farts at the moment. For business owners trying to defend their property, and whatever costs there may be, they should have that right to defend it. And whether it's to put pictures of the reprobates, and to identify them so that if they come near the premises, we'll be able to single them out and deal with them in whatever appropriate means necessary. Thank you.
Okay, your time's up. Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation?
So it's Denise Stotts again, and so I get wilded up, and you guys all know that, and I don't really care what you think. But I will tell you, I'll buy one of the bicycles. So when your police chief determines a cost, I'm only gonna go to $2,000 on a bike. I know they're expensive, but Lauren and I and my girls will do that, because I got a kid that wants to work in your community. And the day she has to carry a frying pan into the toilet at Vagabond Blues to get the junkies out will be the last day she works in Palmer. It'll also be the last day I spend $1 in this town. So I'm gonna spend my $2,000 wisely. And sir, you're welcome. Once you know what you need, you don't have to depend on anybody else. You can find me. Kelly knows where I am. Other people know who I am. I'll give you the money. You go buy a bicycle for the people. And I hope other people will stand up. We're gonna bitch about it. We gotta have something positive to say on the other side of it. And we gotta commit to making change.
Thank you. Please use the microphone. There's actually people listening online as well, so.
Okay, this is Chris Tyree again. CRT is Marxism in schools, DEI is Marxism in hiring, ESG is Marxism in finance, LGBT is Marxism in identity, BLM is Marxism in race. All of these things, the homeless, the MPO or whatever it is, all of this, if you guys would study, let you look at my Agenda 21. I have it. Agenda 21 and the New World Order, this is all about chaos, anger, creating things where you get financially devastated, the cities get financially devastated, the people do. It's all a process of making us more poor, making it purposely to where the cities and the states and our federal is going to be more poor, and we're not going to be able to fight back. This is all being done on purpose. Mental hospitals. Why don't you start having the state do a mental hospital? We need more of those, because a lot of these homeless people are mental, and maybe even have a drug program in the hospital for the drug people. We need to start doing something to where we can't just let this go. And you need to study what's going on behind our backs with Harari and Klaus Schwab and Gates and Soros. These are the people behind all of this. They've got the money to spend. We don't. And if you don't wake up and realize all of this, this city is going to go down the drain. America is going to go down the drain. Everything is. We're not going to have anything. Nobody is. Look at Venezuela. The people there have been going into the garbage trucks trying to get food. They're going in garbage cans trying to get food. And if we keep allowing all of this stuff to happen, we're all going to be on the street crying. A lot of us don't know how to farm. We don't know how to sew. We don't know how to make soaps and candles and stuff. What's gonna happen when all of this stuff happens? They're planning on EMP attacks, which is your electrical system. Computers, they're gonna be out. What are you gonna do? Don't do paperwork anymore. But all of this is a big fat plan, and I wish the government people would wake up to this plan. It's purposely being done, and the homeless is part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation?
My name is Kelly McKay Dolphy. I'm a little calmer this time, and I apologize if I was a little rough, but this is a very passionate thing, and I feel this has been being talked about for years, and this is continually getting worse. And I'm going to match Denise's. It's a simple solution. And that is just one thing we can start with, is just getting someone on there to let these guys know. And I want to make it clear, we are not talking about the homeless situation. We are talking about a group of individuals that are criminals. That is, and these lower charges, there's so many things that can be done. But for starts, can we please get some patrol in downtown area? That's all we need. We need someone on the ground. And when they commit a crime, arrest them. Whether the DA doesn't go through, this one individual already has assault charges on him. All he needs is something a little more than a criminal trespass. And then we would at least get him off for 90 days. And then he can get back on his meds and he can become a functioning person in society for a little while. If he doesn't want to help himself, maybe we can help him. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you.
So they have 2 bikes now, huh? Yeah, 2 bikes. 3 if they went in. 2 bikes. One day shift, one night shift. 16 hours a day.
So who are you, Wes?
I'm the Palmer Bar. One of the things I'm thinking about is I heard you guys talking about a prosecutor and all that. The thing is I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, we're talking about more money and more of the stuff. This has become an issue that some of us that are very small government people we're looking at growing pains. This is really, really hard. I don't have the option being in the bar of caring because of the situation I'm in, even though I legally can. It's gone to that point where a lot of people two people just offered to buy bicycles. It's become that big of an issue. We have to figure it out. We're going to lose tourism this summer when people walk through. I watch people in the park across the street get ran off because they get approached by someone, ask them for money, or basically trying to shake down. These officers are shake down these people that are across the street and pressuring them. And when the tourists start showing up at the museum, that's one of the areas that they go through as they walk across the street to go to the businesses across the street. They're going to have to walk that gauntlet. But I'm glad you guys are taking this seriously, very, very seriously. I could see the concern in every one of you guys' face when you were talking about this. But a packet to let us know what we can do to help get these people off the street. It's not, I think it's not a homeless issue, it's a vagrancy issue. And the idea that the police department is spending a lot of money just to deal with these few guys. If it means that we need to get a prosecutor, then we need to get a prosecutor. Do I like the whole idea? No, but I know most of you guys don't like it either. But it's a growing pain, and we have to look out for the community, just not as city council members, but as business owners, as members. And if we don't get up here and speak, this is democracy, is getting up, trying to find a solution. I know we all want to do something good. Thank you for making effort. But we all got to keep going at it. We're not going to let it fail. It's just like we got to keep going. We got to keep the community first. And so, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation?
Aren't we not supposed to clap during the thing?
I haven't objected yet.
Hello, I'm Jackie Goforth again, and I was going to speak about the library books because that is a thing that is very close to my heart, and I'm a book writer. I can't stand what's happened to the library books. But I can see the homeless issue is much worse, and I have been approached by homeless people, but since I am so large usually and so intimidating, I usually tell them to take a hike, and they do. I don't know why. But I was a letter carrier for 5 years down in Rawlins, Wyoming, and I've been bitten twice by dogs. I have dog scars. And I've avoided dog bites, at least 7 of them, with dog spray. Cayenne pepper spray is the best thing on the planet, and up here in Alaska, it's moose spray we had to use. Okay, so I am never, if I have to go to any function, I never am without my pepper spray. So it works much better, actually, than open carry. You know, if I have a homeless person in my face, they won't be there long. Okay. I'm just that sort of person. I'm not playing. Okay, and I cannot believe the issue we have. They had a prayer session done over at the pavilion. The mayor of Metsu, Edna, we had a prayer session done over there. And we had to make sure that we were out of there before the homeless came back to their houses, because they had bushes that they had staked out for their houses. I can't believe that was 2 years ago, and we're still dealing with it. Everybody needs to get some moose spray. Seriously. Thank you.
Anyone else for that hasn't spoken at this audience participation?
Cindy Hudgens again. I just wanted to make a little more comment on the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So the policy board of this is like their top level decision-making body. These people are not even elected. MPO policy board members are not elected by the citizens. They're either elected by some other place or appointed. They're appointed. And then these policy board members have legal authority to speak and act on behalf of that jurisdiction in the MPO. They have the legal authority, these appointed people that the citizens did not elect to speak for us. I just wanted to reiterate that, or just really put it out there that this is not a good thing. Anyway, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation for this session that hasn't spoken for this audience participation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike Malevsky. Once again, I live at 325 East Fireweed Avenue in downtown Palmer. I apologize for waving my arms. I thought I detected something, but we'll talk about that later. And I think that's an expression very often of frustration when people are sitting here. You've heard this at times. People would like to engage in a discussion, And I know both at the borough level and here at the council, that's been a difficult thing to pull off because things happen and people come up and they speak and you are very, very nicely providing poker faces, usually. So you say, oh, okay, but I just passed that. In the matter of the recent passing of Howard Best, Howard, it was my pleasure to meet with him once a week for 30 years. That's a long thing. It's a long time. And he was a proponent of discussion, and probably that follows from my earlier comment. His whole point was that conversation could produce, and it had to be conversation, not argument, but conversation, could produce good results. And very often the conversations that I observed, whether it was down at the governor's office, down in Juneau, or whether it was in Vagabond Blues, produced positive results because there were conversations. And I wanted to remind people again about that. The matter of bicycles, I'm arguably the only one today who ridden a bicycle in town? Okay. What? You rode one today?
Not today, no.
Oh, okay, yeah. But the reason why I say that is because it's the season for switching from fat bikes to thinner bikes, and I support fully the idea that the police department be involved in bikes, and I'd also like to build on what Billifer said earlier today, because riding a bike early in the season is problematic. And in part, that's because all those things that he's described that are about to happen have not yet happened. It's the beginning of moving the grit and sand away. It's the beginning of actually painting lines so you can determine where there is a bike lane, because it's very difficult to do. And I appreciate every time that happens because it's not clear. And again, there are some places that still probably would benefit from being memorialized as having an image that says this is a bike lane, because sometimes it's not quite clear whether I should travel on a sidewalk, on a parking lane that may be a bike lane, except there's a car parked there. And those kinds of things, I think, as the police department writes about, may help to, again, extend the bike paths that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Is there anyone else for audience participation that hasn't spoken yet? Okay. We'll close audience participation. We've gotten to the end of our agenda. We are adjourned at 9:11. Bye, Josh.
Bye.
You're a trooper.
Yes, 111 where I am.